Election 2024 is over. America has voted, and both sexism and racism have won the day. On Liberal Dan Radio, we will hold everyone accountable, from the media that failed to report the threat that Trump poses to this nation, to the people who supported him. We will pick up the mantle to educate the people about his actions, from being dictator on day one, pardoning January 6th domestic terrorists, implementing Project 2025, and any other draconian measures he tries to pass. And now, the resistance begins. When we open up the phone lines, you can dial 562-542-3261 or 562-LibDan1. You'll know when the phone lines are open when I put the call-in image on. Otherwise, you can also chat in the show chat rooms, either on liberaldanradio.com, on the live feed, which is the YouTube channel, or twitch.tv/liberaldanradio. Either way, you can join the chat. So you can support the show by liking the stream, sharing it with your friends to invite them in to come on in and listen live now. You can also, do super chats, super stickers, become a liberal Danimal for as little as $2 a month. If you have Amazon Prime, it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe over on the Twitch channel. Again, twitch.tv/liberaldanradio. Otherwise, you could also become a member over there and use bits, etc. to help support the show. You can Venmo Liberal Dan on Venmo using the QR code. You can buy me a cider by going to liberaldan.com, click the Buy Me a Cider button, or go to buymecoffee.com/liberaldanradio and make a one-time contribution there. Or you can support the show with Patreon, become a Liberal Dan patron, little as I think $5 a month, and that's another way to support the show every time. But of course, the best thing to do, because we need more high-quality listeners like yourselves, is just comment, chat, like, share on videos that I post. It helps the algorithm, and as we always say, Algor needs a lot more rhythm, especially on the channel. Trucker John will tell you that I'm the best podcast out there, and I appreciate his kind words, of course. I think Tara has said that we are the best podcast that nobody is listening to. Of course, you all are, but, or at least the best podcast that you're not listening to, i.e. the people who are not listening. Hopefully we can maybe come up with some audio like that as well to kind of bolster everything up. But until then, I'll take the good compliments where I can get it. High praise from Trucker John, because I like his show as well. And I always try and tune in when I can. Of course, sometimes with work I'm super busy, so sometimes I can't. Shouts out to everybody in the chat so far. We got Suzanne, Mad Mac, the Mod Squad, Aaron and Jolie, Steve from across the pond, Josh, Roxanne, Impeccable Living. You are here. Awesome to see you. Jackie, Jeff, did I miss everybody? Anybody? Dean, good to see everybody there. As we will usually just talk about a little bit of stuff, either personal or otherwise, whilst we wait for people to make their way into the stream. Hey, Teresa, good to see you as well. Thank you for joining. We have several stuff to talk about in this episode. Of course, just a reminder, we will be going live on Monday in the morning for me, like around 11, maybe 30, 11, no, 11:30, 11, maybe, so it'll probably be 10:30, 10:45 my time, simply because of the fact that the inauguration would start at noon, and we want to be streaming to give people an alternative so they don't have to watch Donald Trump lie to Chief Justice Roberts when he takes his so-called oath of office, because anytime that Donald Trump takes an oath, he's lying. I mean, anytime his lips move, his lips are, that he is lying. Easy for me to say. So we will be going live, and that may or may not preclude, depending on how long that show goes, we may very well do a second show Monday evening as normal. One of the things we do want to keep track of and keep tabs on is, of course, it is planned that Donald Trump is planning on signing a whole crap ton of executive orders on day one, because he wants to be dictator on day one. And when he does that, he will expose yet again the hypocrisy of conservatism, because conservatives typically cry, whine, bitch, moan, complain. Any other word you can find in a thesaurus, any other synonym you might want to find for such words, because they hate executive orders unless it's their guy doing them. So I wonder how many executive orders would be too much. Of course, they would never criticize their Orange Foulius, their Führer-in-chief, their dictator on day one, because they don't care as long as he is hating on the people that he's hating on. And of course, we're also going to see how many, if any, people do get pardoned on day one. Of course, if he doesn't pardon on day one, I'll be calling into my favorite conservative talk show to discuss that issue and see, like, hey, what's wrong? Are you gonna turn your back on Trump yet? Because you said he should pardon people on day one and he hasn't done it yet. So we will see when that happens, and we will maybe eat some popcorn whilst watching and hoping like people like Jake Lang do not get pardoned, because anybody who assaulted a police officer should not be pardoned. Let the judge say, hey, let the judge rule over the case. Let the jury decide guilt or innocence, and if they find him guilty, then guess what? Then let the judge decide if how long the sentence should be, and if the time served is enough. But nobody should be punishing or paroling or even commuting the sentence of Jake Lang or anybody else who assaulted police officers, because if you do, that is a treasonous act in my opinion, and because you are aiding and abetting domestic terrorists. So Mad Max says, I am not watching the inauguration, I'm watching Dan. Awesome, appreciate. Well, glad to see you there. Hello, Progressively Independent, good to see you. Thank you for joining. See if I've missed anything. Should I stop being so nice and polite? To us, no. To MAGA folks, if you are still nice and polite to them, screw them. And there's one reason why, one of many reasons that we'll be discussing later in the show. So remember, again, if you haven't smashed that like button, please remember to smash the like button, and then the patriarchy. But before we go into all of the other stuff that we want to go into, I was not here Monday, as y'all know. Hopefully y'all heard via the Mod Squad and or Andrea and or via the post that I made on here on Liberal Dan Radio on YouTube, because I was in the hospital with my wife. My wife has been dealing with various issues. I don't know if y'all remember, I was talking about how the fact that she drove all the way up to Washington, D.C. to go see a specialist up at Johns Hopkins to deal with the fact that she had Bell's palsy, and it was not seeming to heal itself. There's been other issues since then, like her medicine caused what one doctor thought was thrush, another doctor diagnosed a staph infection on her tongue, another doctor said that she had a vitamin deficiency. There was all sorts of crap going on. Got to the point where we were like, okay, well, let's go to urgent care on Monday after she goes to work, or after work or whatever, and we will go check out. She got an appointment. We're going to go see if what they have to say, and if they can't help her, we'll go to the emergency room at that point. And of course, they said, we can't help you. Go to the emergency room. So we went to the emergency room. But it wasn't really a quote emergency in that she wasn't on death's door or anything. So we had to wait at least 4 hours, if not more, to get back and be seen. And then I was there till 1 o'clock in the morning, so there was no way I was doing a show that day. She was massively dehydrated, and she sucked up a bag of fluids like that. There was some sort of infection that had to be treated. She had a potassium deficiency. They took other blood tests as well. She stayed overnight for observation, and she's home now. She came home the next day, so she's been home for a day now. However, she still has the issues. The main issue that she's having is the fact that everything tastes salty. Everything tastes ridiculously salty. I like salty food myself, so I don't know how I would feel if that was the case. But basically everything tastes. She's somebody. Her dad had high blood pressure, and as such, they always had a low salt diet. So any little bit of salt is bothersome to her. She likes seasoning, just not salt. But now everything tastes all she can't stand to eat, drink, and even water tastes bad to her. And it was like, it makes her nauseous or whatever. So, yeah, she was severely dehydrated that day, and I don't know, she could still be. And we're going to see how things go and see if we need to, at some point, bring her back. But, you know, obviously I'm nervous about it, but I'm trying not to show that I'm nervous about it because of the fact that I want to be strong for the kids. I want to be strong for her. And, you know, most important thing is making sure that she gets her needs taken care of. So that's why, obviously, we didn't have a show on Monday. So I know y'all would understand. And there's plenty of other people to watch when I'm not here. And, of course, there's also other videos that you could also watch when I'm not here, like the best of thing or whatever. But, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, hopefully things will start improving. And we'll go from there. But right now, it's just a matter of let's see how things go, and let's hope they get better day by day. So, say Big Hook's here. Thank you for joining us, Big Hook. Kevin's here. Thank you, Kevin. Did I say hello to Roxanne already? If I didn't, hello, Roxanne. You don't have to put on the red light. Those days are over. You don't have to say your body to the night. Sorry. Anyway. So there's that. So I've been dealing with that. Have some minor hiccups of things going on at work too that have just kind of been stressing me out a little bit. Not as stressed out about work as I was last year, but still stressed out. Not to the point where I'm like, I'm like, come on guys, we need to get up the viewerships or whatever so I can whatever. But I'd love to. At this point, I would just love to be able to do this full time, but I can't do it full time unless we grow significantly. Anyway, but and growing full, then that would allow me to open up the door for a lot more things. But I like my job, I like my boss, I like everything going on. But there's just one little stressful thing where it was partially my fault, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I don't know. We'll go from there. I'm trying not to stress about that either. But anyway. All software can't be perfect 100% of the time. As we all know, we've seen buggy code all over the place. So what else will we talk about? What are we going to talk about first today? Let us do... Hold on, let's switch this up real quick, because I think we want to talk about this other thing first before we talk about the ceasefire. Before we talk about the ACA, we're going to talk about the ceasefire. Of course, we will start recording it, and we'll post this live. It'll be another video that y'all can share with your friends. It'll be a shorter video of the longer form podcast. But before we get into the recording part of it, let's just do a kind of an overview of what's going on and what happened. So you have the Hamas-Israel deal. Many obstacles remain. Fighting is still ongoing with the fact that with the ceasefire that they're talking about. Palestinian officials reported Israeli attacks killed more than 50 people on Wednesday. If all goes as planned, the deal is expected to take effect within days and play out in 3 phases, which one of the things that has always been weird to me about ceasefires is that the ceasefire will go into effect at like noon on a Sunday. Let's say hypothetically it goes into effect on noon on Sunday. We don't know exactly what day it's going to go into effect, but let's say it goes into effect on noon on a Sunday. Like the sides will keep fighting, even though they signed the ceasefire up until the point that the ceasefire, which just goes to show how bloodthirsty and evil humans can be. The first phase, lasting 6 weeks, there'll be a full and complete ceasefire, withdrawal of Israeli forces from all populated areas of Gaza, and a freeing of, quote, a number of hostages held by Hamas, including women, elderly, and wounded. Americans will be part of that. Israel will also release hundreds of Palestinian prisoners, he said, and a surge of humanitarian assistance to Gaza will begin. Hamas promises to release 33 Israeli hostages in exchange for a far greater number of Palestinian detainees. It's not clear how many are involved, yada, yada, yada. Most, but not all, are believed to be alive, according to Israeli officials. And then, let's see. Of course, Donald Trump says, like, they will be released shortly. And, because he has no clue what he's talking about, he probably has no idea what the deal is. Hey, Tim, good to see you. Yes, I think we are all reliving PTSD from the last time Trump effed everything up. Clearly. Yeah, Trump, and you're from Canada, so I mean, his effing everything up is not just a matter of, just in America. His effing up f's up everything, everything, everything. Almost just spilled my giant cup of water all over the place. Need some water because I'm thirsty. And anticipation of death is worse than death itself. Yeah, probably, pretty much. But anyway, one of the things that we want to talk about, though, simply the fact of Trump taking credit. So, Donald Trump is taking credit for all of this, even though the fact is that this deal is what President Biden had proposed way back in May. So there's no way that Donald Trump can claim credit for this. Of course, he's going to, say, "Oh, because I was elected, that forced the people to take action." Of course, no, it's not. This is just about as stupid as giving Reagan credit for freeing the Iranian hostages. It's just absurd that Reagan got any credit for it. It's absurd that Trump gets any credit for this as well. The only maybe minor difference is the fact that one member, I think, of Trump's administration, who is going to be, I guess, diplomatically involved with Israel in some way, shape, or form, was there as well, because the Biden administration wants the transition to be as seamless as possible, and as such is going to, try and involve his officials that are going to be coming in ways that to make sure that they know what's going on, they know all the aspects of the deal, etc. But that doesn't mean that Trump was involved in the negotiation. It doesn't mean that Trump has anything to do with the fact that this actually is, going to be a thing. His claiming so is ridiculous. But what I want to know, and what I would ask every conservative, and this is part of kind of my whole thing of where, I help y'all best deal with conservatives who are trying to claim that Trump takes responsibility for this. Let's be clear. This deal trades a disproportionate number of Palestinian/Hamas prisoners that Israel is holding for the hostages that Hamas is holding amongst Americans and or Israelis. Now, initially, I kind of questioned that disparate. Like, why can't it just be a life for a life? Why can't it just be one person traded for one person traded? But looking at things, there were, a number of deaths, like over 1,200 deaths on the Israeli side when the attacks happened on 10/7, 2023. But the Israeli response has been way too disproportionate, did not take into consideration reducing loss of civilian lives, and a lot of civilian lives have been lost because of the actions of Netanyahu and how he has waged this war with Hamas. So because that's the case, I can kind of agree with the idea that if we've lost, or if Israel has caused a loss of life that was far greater than the loss of life caused by Hamas, then maybe it's reasonable for Israel to return a disproportionate number of folks that they have imprisoned as compared to the ones that are being returned by Hamas to Israel and to America. That being said, is Donald Trump really going to take credit for all of this? Because we should absolutely say, look, if Donald Trump is taking credit for this, he should be taking credit for all of this, including the fact that he is now taking credit for the fact that a disproportionate number of Hamas prisoners that are being held by Israel are now being returned. So that means that Donald Trump is endorsing and supporting the idea that a large number of Palestinian folks are being released, that are suspected Hamas ties are being released from Israeli prisons and being returned back to Gaza. Now, this shouldn't necessarily surprise people, because remember when Donald Trump allowed for the release of a lot of Taliban folks? Remember when Donald Trump actually said that he wanted to meet the leaders of the Taliban at Camp David? Like, he invited literal terrorists to come to the United States to have negotiations in Camp David. So nobody should be surprised that Donald Trump would actually kind of be buddy up with, people who are terrorists. He might claim to want to bomb them all, but he'll be buddy with them as long as it helps them politically. But are Donald Trump supporters going to support that? I want to watch Donald Trump supporters, I want to watch conservatives try and weasel their way out of explaining why it's okay to be disproportionate. And again, I think it's okay to be disproportionate, but conservatives typically wouldn't. And if it was just Biden, if this took place like in the last year or whatever, before the presidential election was over, if this took place then, I guarantee you that conservatives would be arguing, why are we giving so many people back from Israeli prisons that are in a disproportionate number to the folks being released by Hamas? I guarantee you they do that. But if Trump's taking credit for this, I want to watch the conservatives try and explain their way out of that paper bag. Because a conservative could not even argue, especially a MAGA conservative, would not be able to argue their way out of any paper bag, let alone that one. So what do you think? Do you think conservatives will be able to make that argument? Do you think they'll be able to cogently, coherently make the argument as to why it's okay that Donald Trump is taking credit for this, and as such, he's then taking credit for the disproportionate number of Hamas prisoners being released by Israel? Let me know in the comments down below. Remember to like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and of course, have a good day. So there's that video, nice little 6-minute video. Scroll back up and see what the folks are saying on that issue. Let's see. We already saw that. Trump takes credit for everything positive. But that's the thing, Tim, is that the fact that usually conservatives would not consider the disproportionate release of suspected Hamas-related, Hamas-connected Palestinians to the number of Israelis and Americans being released as being a positive. They would absolutely criticize Joe Biden for that. But Donald Trump is taking credit for this. So if he's taking credit for this, he has to take credit for all of it. So let them try and explain their way out of that one. That's what I want to see. I would challenge any conservative, when we do open the phone lines, to go ahead and call in and try and explain it to me as well, because I don't believe you can. I don't believe you'll be able to make a cogent argument that makes sense. But then again, hypocrisy is a conservative prerequisite. See, I think you should block the people who don't give a damn about you and your welfare. That's always good for self-care. Hello, Midas Sue. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. No one in mainstream media will ask those questions. That's why mainstream media sucks. Let me make another video just for that as well, just because you say that. I'll have to bring that up. Nobody, Suzanne, or Midas Sue says, no one in mainstream media will ask those questions, i.e., nope. Let's start over again. Midas Sue says, nobody in mainstream media will ask those questions. What questions? Those questions of, asking conservatives to try and square the circle of trying to explain why it's okay that Donald Trump is taking full credit, and as such, he's taking credit for a disproportionate number of Hamas prisoners being released compared to the Israeli and Americans that are being released by Hamas. So, but of course, the mainstream media is never going to ask those questions because the mainstream media sucks. We've discussed why Lawrence O'Donnell sucks several times on this channel already. We've discussed why Alex Wagner has made some huge glaring errors on her podcast or her show, and we've discussed that as well. So yeah, the mainstream media has failed us, and that is clear as crystal from the 2024 elections, how the mainstream media has, screwed the pooch. That's why we need new media and better media from the giant corporate folks who are out there. Look, I'll still watch MSNBC for the main basic ideas, but we have to rely on ourselves and other forums, like the Midas Channel, like House Sparks, like Stephanie Miller, like Boston Brian, anybody else, Tommy, my dude, or whatever. We'll need to watch those types of channels to be able to get the actual analysis that's going to make sense, to watch the actual analysis that is going to, explain to the people why or what these other people are missing. Even like the Young Turfs. Like the Young Turfs need to be ignored as well because they went turfy and also have supported other conservative things. Which you have Mika and Joe being apologists for Trump and going to Mar-a-Lago after the election. Like, we can't trust these people. We need better media, and that's why we need to elevate all of the voices that I said and more. Your Trucker Johns, everybody, from your smallest channels to your largest channels. We need to support them, back them, because we all need to be all hands on deck fighting these conservatives, fighting what the conservatives want to do, fighting what MAGA wants to do. That's clearly the mainstream media is not equipped. They're either unwilling or incapable of making those cogent arguments, and that's why we need to raise up better people in the media. I would like to be one of them, but it is what it is. Choose whoever you want, but we need to raise these voices to make sure that we can fight back in the next 2 and 4 years. The major congressional elections coming up in 2026, and then the next presidential election in 2028, assuming Donald Trump allows us to have them. Anyway, what do you think? Agree, disagree? Leave your comments down below, like, subscribe, and of course, have a good day. So there you go. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Sue. Appreciate the point, and it gives me a little bit of a rant. It's not a fat man rant. There will be a fat man rant soon, though. Biden was great at the end of his speech. The Democrats have been repeating the message of the billionaire oligarchy forming and what that means. Midas Sue, I agree to watch and subscribe to you. BTC, Midas, Hal, etc. That's great, and I'm super happy. Everybody, and that's what everybody should be doing, because I don't want a monopoly on all the good quality listeners, watchers, etc. I want everybody to have a rising tide, right? To raise all of the good ships. Not necessarily the good ship Lollipop, but the good ships nonetheless. Ooh, I want to talk about one more thing before I actually let me jot this down. I might talk about it next, but why is this not typing? My keyboard is not acting properly. What is going on? I don't know what's going on. So I don't want to have to forget this. So we'll talk about this now. We'll do a third recording. Let's flip back to the other show image, I guess. And as you can see, we do have a Words of Redneck Wisdom and Hypocrite of the Week both today, because I could. Cancel more student debt and force Republicans to be responsible for effing the people who strive for better. When I find out what Donald Trump will be doing with student loan debt, you'll see how if I'm either pissed, really pissed, extremely pissed, or just completely frickin' broken. Those are the 4 moods that I anticipate being in when Donald Trump and his Department of Education determines what they're going to do with things like the SAVE plan. It's either going to be minorly pissed, majorly pissed, completely pissed, or just broken. Those are the 4 options that I anticipate coming. I'm not at all optimistic as to what's going to happen with my incoming cash flow, or my outgoing, as compared to my outgoing cash flow under Donald Trump's administration. But that's not going to be. Thinking about the good ship Lollipop was not on my schedule today. I think outside the box. I'm bringing you all sorts of weird things. So. Let's see. Biden slammed the lack of fact-checking in media under. Perfect segue. I'm going to read that as part of the next audio, next video that I'm making. Tim in the chat says, Biden slammed the lack of fact-checking in the media under MAGA. I can't believe we are here. I can believe we are here because, let alone the fact-checking that the media has done has been a failure. Total, complete failure. But the other problem with the fact-checking, and why I'm actually going to be staying on Facebook, despite the fact that Facebook is eliminating fact-checking, is this. I have a video about this topic from discussing something else when I was talking about how the fact-checkers are problematic that Facebook was using. For example, discussing Project 2025. There are videos and images discussing Project 2025, and Facebook would either fact check and or delete and or shade out any images that were saying that Project 2025 was going to get rid of like the NOAA, the National Hurricane Center, etc. People were making that claim, and the so-called fact checkers were saying, no, there is nothing in Project 2025 that specifically states these words. So because there's nothing in that document that specifically states these words, they would fact check you for saying that those things would go away. But we've discussed that on this show already. And there's a whole video on that, but the short version of that video, I'll link to a longer version of the video in this video, is that those types of fact checks don't help because it eliminates the ability of individuals to read a set of statements that somebody wants to do and then come to a logical conclusion about what the results of those actions would be. So if you read Project 2025, specifically that part about like the NOAA or whatever, like we did live on the show, you can read through all of those statements and you can say, okay, the logical conclusion from all of these things that they want to do is that these things are going to be harmed or destroyed from any sort of meaningful way. Like they won't have any meaningful purpose if you split those functions up or if you automatically just remove those functions altogether. So these types of fact checks that Facebook was using eliminates the ability to come to a logical conclusion based off of certain plans. Plan 1, 2, and 3. Like let's say some plan was like we're gonna stop giving away free food. I'm not saying it does, but let's say somebody's like we're gonna get rid of Medicaid. Let's say they said we're gonna get rid of food stamps. Let's say they said we're gonna get rid of other things that help people who are living in poverty. You would then say, well, this document is saying that that they should kill people who are in poverty, and then of course these fact checkers would say, no, that doesn't say that. It doesn't call for the killing of the people. It just calls for all these other things. But the logical conclusion would be that more people would die because of that. And if I said Donald Trump saying that he wants to pull out, or the Project 2025 saying that they want to pull out of the World Health Organization, to me, the logical conclusion of that is that more people are going to die worldwide because we are not taking part in the World Health Organization, a global organization that is meant to help people not die. So the end result of that is more people are going to die. But if you couldn't say that under the old so-called fact checkers, because they would say, well, the document doesn't say that. Well, screw you. The document says a whole bunch of other things that you can come to a logical conclusion that the end result is going to be. The other problem, and this is maybe a little bit of a silly one, is that the fact checkers could not differentiate between, what was said in humor and what is said seriously. For example, a friend of mine, actually it's the host of the most Nimbus Yosh with the smooth sounds of the Percy podcast, which hasn't been on in a while. But anyway, he posted a link to Facebook talking about a new variant of the COVID-19 new variant of COVID-19, the virus. It was called the Ligma variant. And that was the joke, because Ligma sounds like lick my. What's the Ligma variant? Ligma balls or whatever. And that's the way that joke goes. But he posts this on his Facebook page, and Facebook fact checks him. There is no Ligma variant of the COVID-19 virus. Really? Did you really have to tell people that there's no Ligma variant? Did you really have to fact check a joke? That's one of the other things that make the fact checkers a joke. So while I do have questions. I do enjoy the fact that, whenever community notes on Twitter against Elon Musk, like when Elon Musk posts something and then community notes is like, well, this is why Elon Musk is wrong. I love when that happens. But a lot of times, as a software developer, a lot of the times, crowdsourced software, like, the crowd getting in there and kind of jointly, making software, that can a lot of times lead to some good software. However, I'm not necessarily convinced 100% that it's going to be, great for Facebook to have that version, but I have no reason to believe that it won't be better than what Facebook currently has, because what Facebook currently uses is crap. What Facebook currently uses, again, fact-checked jokes and made it so that people couldn't reach logical conclusions based off of other statements made in a particular document. So that's one of the reasons I'm going to continue to stay on Facebook. It's one of the reasons that, I'm kind of glad to see that type of fact-checking is going away, because that will allow people to share these logical conclusions based off of the statements that are being made by Trump, his administration, his incoming administration at least, and those groups that support him. What do you think? Agree, disagree? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and have a good day. Anyway, let's see. Midas Sue, Steve, Facebook deleted my Project 2025 post prior to the election. Again, and I'm sure your Project 2025 posts were logical and reasonable and were based on what was written in Project 2025 and contained logical conclusions based off of what might happen if Project 2025 is implemented. But because they don't contain, because the document didn't actually write out every single possible, end result of implementing these actions would be, you using your intelligence, you using your brains to actually, come to those conclusions and tell other people what those conclusions are, is viewed as not being factual. And that's a huge problem. But that explains why Donald Trump won. That explains why Donald Trump won this election. Because there are plenty of people who don't understand the idea of reaching a conclusion based on logical conclusion based off of a certain set of facts or a certain set of statements or a certain set of plans. You plan to do X, Y, and Z. Well, that's going to cause A, B, C, D, and E to happen. Well, it doesn't say A, B, C, D, or E happen. It doesn't matter, and it shouldn't matter, because people who with working brains can figure that stuff out. And the media sure as hell ain't doing it. The mainstream media isn't doing it. And part of those fact checkers are people in the mainstream media. So again, that's why we need to move on. That's why we need new media out there. We need to support new media. Oh, I just see Trucker John is in the chat. Good to see you, Trucker John. I did talk about you earlier. Told everybody should, support your show, as always. Of course, I did say that, I did quote you in saying that I was the best show out there, which I appreciate and love it every time you say that. I do think Trucker John is great too, and I always try and watch as much as possible. So, thank you, Sue. Appreciate you. Suzanne, well, there's a reason why we no longer see old WW in our chat anymore, because I got sick and tired of the BS. So there's that. And I'm fine if people want to, make excuses for him or whatever and deal with him. If you want to deal with him on your own way in your own time, whatever, I'm not going to judge you for it. People have a certain amount of tolerance for other people, and that's perfectly fine. I just didn't have any more spoons for that individual. So let's go. Let's before we go on to the other thing, I don't see, has Nick in the chat? Because if Nick's, I'm trying to wait as long as possible for Nick to be in chat, because I know Nick likes my fat man rants, and we're going to do a fat man rant in a little bit. But I'm trying to give 56 Nick Rich as much time as possible to come on in and poke his head in so that we can so that he can watch it. Of course, it'll be posted later, and it'll be posted as a separate video, so you never really miss it, because not only could you watch the whole show in the you could replay the whole show whenever you want, but you can also, I'll also be uploading that clip as well, so it's not that big of a deal. But it's always fun to see it live, and half the time I'm not doing it live, so live ones are fun. So, Tim, how about an outright lie by MAGA posted on Facebook or X? We all replied that Musk and Zuckerberg are lovers in the comments. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but they won't like it. Oh, I've seen, there is a video, I think I shared it with Aaron. I'm pretty sure I shared it with Aaron, where somebody posted this long video that was basically like, hey, if you, according to these folks, fact-checking is communist. So if you're not a communist, you won't fact-check what I say. And then he went into all of these things that were absolutely ridiculous, but he was like, well, if you fact-check me, you're a communist. You can't fact-check me. That's evil and wrong to do. So you better not fact-check me, because I'm stating these things as truth, and therefore you can't change my truth or whatever. And then one of the things he said was actually true, but it was filled with a lot of things that were like, patently, like one of them was like, Elon Musk is forming is saving all of his poop so that one day he can mold that poop into a life-size version of a human being that will have more in common with him than anybody else ever has. And other funny things. So I was cracking up when I was watching it. See, how can I give 56 Nick Rich my phone number? I don't know. I mean, you have to, I wouldn't post it in the chat. That's for darn sure. But if he wanted you to, if you wanted him to get it and he wanted you to if he wanted to receive it, I'd be more than happy to be a conduit if you emailed it to me. So if that happens, let me know. Yeah. So before, let's do two things. Let's do Hypocrite of the Week first. We will do Hypocrite of the Week. And then probably shortly thereafter, we'll do Words of Redneck Wisdom. Because, we got both today. I like doing both. So, without further ado, this is this week's Hypocrite of the Week. This week we have a double dose. Actually, wait, what's going on? Did it start playing? Maybe the problem isn't my, the soundboard that was playing the sounds earlier. Maybe the problem was the fact that it actually seems to be delaying playing all sounds, which is kind of weird. But let's try that again, shall we? This week we have a double dose of hypocrisy for Hypocrite of the Week. First, Senator and combat veteran Joni Ernst is backing Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense despite her initially balking because of his statements that women should not serve in combat roles. Secondly, Carrie Underwood, who sang about keying and otherwise defacing the vehicle of a man who cheated, will now be performing for Trump's inauguration. Of course, Trump cheated on at least 2 of his wives. To see who next week's Hypocrite of the Week will be, tune in live Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central here on liberaldanradio.com or twitch.tv/liberaldanradio for more talk from the left. That's right. There you go. This week's Hypocrites of the Week. Both Senator Joni Ernst. If you actually watched my Nerdy Dan stream last night, I did talk about the fact that Joni Ernst was going to be the Hypocrite of the Week. So you got a spoiler if you watched with me. Of course, it was only Andrea and Aaron. So only 2 people knew who the Hypocrite of the Week was going to be prior to it being the Hypocrite of the Week. That being said, I almost was tempted to try and write like a parody or something of Carrie Underwood's Before He Cheats or whatever. But I couldn't quite think of the good lyrics off the top of my head about what she might do with Air Force One or something. Or Trump Force One or whatever you want to call it. But yeah. She makes a whole big ballad of maybe next time he'll think before he cheats. But she's gonna sing songs for the inauguration of the person who cheated on at least 2 of his wives and probably all 3. But I don't know if we know if he cheated on Marla Maples, because we know he cheated on Ivana with Marla. We know he cheated on Melania with Stormy. Did he cheat on Marla too? I don't know. Maybe. I can't keep it straight how many people that Donald Trump has screwed over. So I wish you would be on Hal's Monday AM show instead of Tara Dublin. I mean, I do like Tara. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Tara, I want to have her back on the show. The problem with that is that I really can't do much during the day. I try and limit what I do during the day simply because of the fact that, I work during the day and I don't want to get in trouble with work. I have taken my lunch break and last time when I was on Hal's, I think it was on a Friday, I did use my lunch break to go on Hal's show. But I would love to be on Hal's show more often as well anyway, because I have a great time with Hal. We get along well. And I do need to learn how to play Call of Duty because Hal plays Call of Duty and he said that we should play together one time. So there's that as well. What hasn't Trump cheated on is the more appropriate question. That's also a good question. Good comment. Very true. Understood. We all have jobs. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'll be hard pressed to say no to Hal if Hal's like, come on my show. I'm like, okay. But I know, again, there are guests, who people like and guests who people dislike all over the place. So it's fine. I mean, I'm not going to begrudge people for their tastes or their opinions on who they like or who they dislike. I just don't have anybody that comes on regularly currently, but, it is what it is. So, let's see, what else should we do? Do we want to move on to the Fat Man rant, or what the subject of the Fat Man rant? Do I move on? We'll talk about the subject of the Fat Man rant first before we actually go to the rant, or maybe we'll rant first and then we'll go into more in-depth conversation about what the topic is. But first, let us actually do. We'll go ahead and we'll play words of redneck wisdom as well, because we get a two for bits. We don't just have a twofer for the hypocrite of the week. We also have a twofer when it comes to bits this week as well. And it's a slightly long one. I do apologize for the fact that this person is a severe idiot who was on Thursday morning show of Jeff Carreur's Ringside Politics Radio. But whenever I can catch this guy come on, it's so perfect because his voice just works so well for words of redneck wisdom. If you haven't heard him before, you'll see why. But without further ado, here's this week's words of redneck wisdom.
And now, words of redneck wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio.
But how in the heck is it constitutional or legal for that vegetable that's still in the White House to give our money, our hard-earned tax dollars away without an act of Congress? I thought Congress held the purse strings. Why did they give that idiot a blank check to give our tax dollars to any country he wants to fly to for a little vacation R&R or whatever it is he does over there? Probably molest kids that they give him for that money, okay? That's my feelings about it. But what a better way. I can't think of any better way, Jeff, for a terrorist, a.k.a. a saboteur, to come into this country and just destroy so much property and kill so many and destroy ecosystems in this country as to come into the country, strike a match, throw it down, and let the dry tinder that the DIE people left out there for him to start the fire with, and let the wind do the rest, the tinder and the wind do the rest. It's terror. And our 51st state's been doing it now. Some of them wildfires in California is 50 miles apart. That's impossible at the same time unless it's coordinated somehow. Look at all the wildfires last spring or spring or two ago, when the weather's supposed to be, kind of damp.
So Mark,
are you started in our 51st state, and smoke come down into the lower 50 states.
And this concludes Words of Redneck Wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right.
Anyway, that's this week's Words of Redneck Wisdom. Frankly, I am shocked that he knew the word saboteur, and actually said it seemingly properly because of all the other crap that he said. Some crap about the money that he used to spend on vacations could be used on, child whatever, gross. They sure do fantasize about that a lot. That makes me wonder about them and who exactly, because, usually every conservative accusation is a confession. So there's that. But yeah, just all sorts of, just whenever he talks, I'm just like, this is just so perfect for Words of Redneck Wisdom. It would be a shame to not use that for Words of Redneck Wisdom. But these people also don't know how fire travels. Like, well, these things are, 50 miles apart or whatever, and we can't. How can it not be purposefully started if they're so far apart? Well, listen, dumbass, you You have embers that will flow through the air and they'll remain on fire, and they can blow a fairly long distance and then land in a brush of dry tinder somewhere else. And guess what? It starts anew over there. Fire can travel pretty long distances that way. Or there could be just conditions be right for fires to be started altogether, and maybe several lightning strikes took place, or what have you, and it goes that way too. There's lots of logical explanations as to why fires might be started multiple ways. That doesn't have to be a frickin' conspiracy. But to these people, everything is a conspiracy. But if everything's a conspiracy, then nothing's a conspiracy. There's no reason to believe it, because it's just like the boy who cried wolf. But again, as we've said on the show previously, the conservatives who are like this will also believe that the moral of the story of the boy who cried wolf is, if somebody lies to you, keep believing them, because they might one day tell the truth, and you don't want to miss it if they one day tell the truth. That's why they believe in all these conspiracy theories, because it doesn't matter if any of them are true, because the next one might be. Then his crap about the 51st state, people would typically mock those who say that there's only 50 states. Well, no, because they're calling Canada the 51st state. So clearly that's stupid. And it's just meant to just further, support Donald Trump and his ridiculousness that he wants to annex Canada and make it a state, and annex Greenland and annex the Panama Canal back again, all this BS. So then, of course, when he's like, these people with their DEI, they don't even know what the initials are for the programs or the ideas that they hate. Diversity, inclusion, or that's DIE, equity, DEI. It's not DIE, it's DEI. And all of those things are good things to have. Like, one of the things that I like about my workplace is that they make it important to give like training videos on why DEI is important. Because having diverse people means you're going to have diverse opinions from diverse backgrounds, which can lead to better results. Having equity means that people who might not normally be able to work in certain environments can be able to give their contributions, because you're giving them equity. From as simple as somebody who's obese getting a chair that they can fit in or sit in that won't break under them, to I've been there, done that, because I've they had multi-100-pound me, overweight or whatever, trying to sit in a chair meant for somebody who weighs 175 pounds. I'm like, this is not going to work. This is going to be terrible. And inclusion, just including people who might not normally get to be included. Has nothing to do with how qualified they are. That's the biggest mistake of, they'll say, all these people, the reason we're having so much problems in California is they're more worried about DEI than they are worried about getting the job done. Or somebody is like they said, Vice President Harris was a DEI hire. No, she was appointed because President Biden thought she was qualified for the job. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson was labeled as a DEI justice, but she was picked because she was a qualified individual. Now, the fact that she's the first black woman to ever serve on the Supreme Court does give diversity, does cause inclusion. It hits 2 of the 3, and that's a good thing, because the Supreme Court shouldn't be a bunch of seven white dudes. But that's what the conservatives would want. Conservatives would want 7 white dudes, especially seven conservative white dudes. 7 conservative, cis-het white dudes. Good night, Suzanne. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you. But yeah, words of redneck wisdom. Always a good time, even if the ridiculousness comes. When California joins Canada, there'll be 49 states. The problem with California joining Canada is then the country will be absolutely screwed. Will absolutely be screwed if especially if we lost California, Oregon, and Washington State. Especially if those states split and the eastern parts of those states stayed with the United States or joined with Idaho or whatever, or maybe they formed their own state while the other half of the states decided to go off with California and join Canada, that would just kill this country. because not only would we lose senators and lose Democratic senators, we'd also lose a whole bunch of congressional seats. And as such, it would be impossible then for the Democrats to ever win, and we'd be a lost nation. I mean, we feel like we're a lost nation already because we have MAGA von Schitz's pants being sworn in on Monday, but still, it would make it even worse. So, I guess that's the other side of the argument, Sue, is that, you know, if you lose California's money, then the red states wouldn't get the red state welfare that they get because the red states are takers and the blue states are givers. Hey, Janelle. Yeah, I haven't opened the phone lines yet. So we will open the phone lines probably after I do my fat man rant. So, but when I did say when the image comes up, when you see this next time, that what I'm flashing right now, if you see that image once you see that image pop up, you will be able to call at that point. But I have not opened up the calls yet. Because I do want to get whatchamacallit, this one other point in first before we then go to the phone lines. So, no problem, Janelle. Thank you for letting me know. I'm glad that, you know, you want to call in Big Hook. We will get to you in a second, or in a few seconds or whatever. So, but I do want to go talk about this thing first. How do I want to start this? Anyway, so you have this court case. Braidwood versus Becerra. I think that's how it's pronounced. Braidwood versus Becerra, or Becerra. It's a threat to preventive services. So basically, the underlying thing is that there is a group of people who are suing because they don't believe that the panel, the people who were appointed by either Obama or by Biden or whatever, to be able to say, hey, these are the preventive services that should be covered under the Affordable Care Act. So that is this. And these conservatives sued in Texas. And of course, the Court of Appeals was the Fifth Circuit, which is the most conservative court of appeals in the country, because it covers like Louisiana and Texas and everything. So they want, these individuals want the requirements for preventive services to be covered. They want to wipe that away and they're claiming religious reasons for it. And when we get to the Fat Man rants, we'll get to what those religious reasons are and what arguments they're making. But so whether the task force is unconstitutional under the appointments clause and vesting clause hinges on whether the members are principal officers or not. Under these provisions in the Constitution, principal officers require presidential appointment and Senate confirmation. Plaintiffs contend that these members of the task force and the ACIP and HRSA employees are principal officers because the task force members are not presidentially appointed. Senate confirmed their roles allegedly violate the above clauses. The government argues instead that they are inferior officers operating lawfully under the vesting clause, which allows inferior officers to be appointed without Senate confirmations by heads of departments and courts of law, as well as the president. The government pointed out that the Senate confirmed HHS secretary can remove task force members, even though he has not done so. The court rejected the secretary's early attempt to ratify the task force recommendations as a way to eliminate harm from any appointments clause violations, finding that he lacked the authority to do so. So they're suing because these people aren't appointed and ratified by the Senate or approved by the Senate with their advising consent role. But then when the person who was approved by the Senate for the advising consent role tried to say, okay, well, I'm endorsing these things and I will rubber stamp these things because I agree that that's the case, they said, nope, you don't have the authority to do so either, because the courts are ridiculous and activist. Activist conservatives, are ruining this country, especially in the courts. But here is why I'm going to do a Fat Man rant, and let's switch my background, shall we? Because we need to switch the background to my Fat Man rant screen. And I'm bigger now. Look, I'm bigger on the screen. So let me get the itch taken care of first before. Hey, Marie, good to see you. Thank you for joining. See, before we get to that, LAOY86 had a great video on why TikTok is malware and a psyop being perpetuated on the American people. We'll get to TikTok in a second, and we'll talk about that when I open the phone lines, and then we can chat about that and other things as well. But we're not there yet. So, but we will. I did want to talk about the impending TikTok shutdown as well, because I've discussed it before, but I'll discuss it again because it's due to happen. But anyway, this at this point in the video, you'd see the Liberal Dan Radio presents Fat Man Rants. Anyway, but we're not gonna play that one. We'll play the regular one when this video is posted and uploaded or whatever. But anyway, I might get a little yelly in this one because this one is pissing me off greatly. Conservatives will not stop going after the Affordable Care Act. And in the Braidwood case, the plaintiffs are harboring so-called religious objections to purchasing health insurance that includes some of the recommended preventive services. What are these preventive services, you ask? They include, but are not limited to, quote, abortifacient contraception, PrEP, i.e. pre-exposure prophylaxis, to prevent HIV transmission, the HPV vaccine, and screenings and behavioral counseling for sexually transmitted disease and drug use. They believe that these interventions, quote, encourage homosexual behavior, intravenous drug use, and sexual activity outside of marriage between one man and one woman. Well, you know what? Screw y'all. You don't need to be in a homosexual relationship, nor do you need to be in any sort of, extramarital sexual situation to need, for example, PrEP. You can get PrEP if you have exposure to HIV, if you're like working in a hospital. And while working in a hospital, you get like a needle stick that happened to stick somebody who may be infected with HIV. Now, I don't care who gets PrEP. I have no problem with individuals who are in homosexual relationships. I have no problem with people who are having sex outside of marriage. It's none of my business. It's none of their business either. None. But the fact that they're making that into a gay thing is absurd, because one of the first times I ever heard about these PrEP, the pre-exposure prophylaxis shots that you can get, was when I was working in a hospital, and there was somebody in the hospital who needed to get one of these shots because they needed to make sure that they didn't inadvertently get HIV, and you can prevent it if you take this medicine. You can prevent the HIV from taking hold if you get this. Yes, there are people who use PrEP who are in homosexual relationships, but that shouldn't matter. Then, of course, there's the whole abortifacient contraception. There's no evidence whatsoever that birth control pills or the morning after pill are abortifacients. None. It used to be the idea, we used to believe, science used to believe, that if you took a birth control pill or the morning after pill, that what could happen is either it prevents ovulation, fertilization, or implantation. It has been since shown that there is no evidence that birth control pills prevent implantation. None. There's no evidence of that happening. Some of the warning labels might still include it based off the old language, but newer studies have shown that no evidence exists that it prevents implantation. But are you even pregnant if you hasn't been implanted yet? So that shouldn't even matter. But I do understand the argument made by these hyper-religious evangelical type folks who believe that an embryo is the same thing as a baby, and as such they're opposed to anything that might stop implantation of an already fertilized egg. But again, there's no evidence that it happens. But this is the same bogus crap that was done in Burrell versus Hobby Lobby in one of Justice Alito's terrible rulings, that they allowed Hobby Lobby to say, we believe that it causes an abortion. We believe that it prevents a fertilized egg from implanting into the uterine wall. And as such, their belief was enough to bring the suit. Instead of the court, what they should have done, the court should have said, okay, if this actually happens, then maybe you have a case. But the onus should be on you to prove the science that it happens before actually being able to make the argument that therefore you should not be forced to cover it. But that's not what Alito and this activist conservative Supreme Court did. Nothing. They didn't do anything of the sort. And all these other things like intravenous drug, like, again, it should be none of their business if something is helping somebody who might happen to be like on drugs. Let's say a family member is dealing with a drug issue. Don't you want to stop it? Don't you want to help them? No, their solution is to throw everything out with the bathwater. Their solution is to punish people because they participate in activities that they don't agree with. These so-called religious people, again, want to let people die of HIV because they don't want to cover PrEP. And that's one of those things that will be marked as, their lawsuit doesn't say this, so therefore we're fact-checking you because their lawsuit never said that we want people with HIV to die. But guess what? That's going to happen because more people are going to get it, and as such, more people will die because of it. That's why the fact-checkers are stupid. That's one of the reasons why this is also stupid. The court should not allow people to be able to enforce their religious beliefs on others through the courts. It is not a violation of your religious rights, your religious freedoms, when somebody works, when they use their benefits to get their needed medicine, their needed treatments. Period. End of story. Why? Because I've made this argument on the podcast before. If I work and I earn $1 at that work, I can spend that dollar anywhere I want, at anything. The same should be considered for any benefit earned from that work. I pay for those benefits with my work. You pay for my labor, and then I'm paying for the benefits with that labor. And a benefit dollar spent should not be considered any different than a dollar spent out of my wallet, than a dollar spent out of my bank account, or a dollar spent of anything else. You should not get to force that on other people because you happen to not like what it is. But what this case also risks, potentially, it opens the door for the Supreme Court to be able to come in and say, not only are these things not required to be covered by insurers if they have religious objections, it could toss out the entire portion of the fact that, these people get preventive service coverage. It could completely throw out the coverage of things at 100% first dollar. Preventive coverage, required preventive coverage is one of the good things about the Affordable Care Act. There are bad things, sure. There are things that could be improved, sure. They want to throw out the good things. But you know what? Who's going to defend this now? The Trump administration? Will the Trump administration defend the Affordable Care Act against these lawsuits? Because it was allowed late enough so that the Justice Department will not be able to continue to defend it. At least the Biden Justice Department wouldn't. It's the Trump Justice Department that's going to defend it. Do we believe that the Trump Justice Department is going to say, oh, we're going to defend the requirement to have abortifacient coverage or whatever it is they want to call it, even though it's not abortifacient coverage. It's just birth control pills. No. They're not going to put up any sort of meaningful defense. They'll allow the Supreme Court to rule how they want the Supreme Court to rule. And if they throw up a defense just to make sure it goes to the Supreme Court, that'll be a bad one. And then, at the very minimum, these services and other services like this. If people can claim a moral objection, it'll basically say, I don't believe in covering any of this, so I don't want to cover any of this. I'm morally opposed to any of this preventive care. But it could just eliminate the ability altogether, or the requirement altogether to have preventive care. That's the worst case scenario. Well, the worst case scenario is they just toss the Affordable Care Act altogether. Because you have the 5 votes to do it, because Justice Roberts won't, but everyone else who is conservatives on the court would. But you could, the worst case would be you lose all preventive coverage, covered at 100% first dollar. And then more people will get sick. And then more people will die. Sorry, Facebook fact checkers or people that used to fact check on Facebook. That is the logical conclusion based off of what will happen if these people are allowed to have these things go through. And they're using religion to deny people the health care that they need. And I hope, if this thing happens, and if these things are no longer covered, after these people left around, I hope they're the first ones to find out. I hope something happens to them that causes them to need one of these solutions that they've conveniently have thrown out. We know it's going to happen to good people. We know that good people are going to suffer because of this BS. But I sure as hell hope the first people that it happens to are the ones that voted for Donald Trump, who thought that Biden wasn't intelligent enough or didn't have the cognitive abilities despite Mr. President Hamburger. I think today was the anniversary of hamburgers. Covfefe. United States. All the other things that Donald Trump has said and done that prove his cognitive disabilities. Oh, he said person, woman, man, camera, TV. He must be cognitively intelligent or whatever. Yeah, F you. But these people, I hope they get their comeuppance. I hope that anything that they cause to get thrown out and harm they do to the people, I hope it impacts them. And I hope they learn. Not just the people pushing for this, but for the people who put the marginalized and oppressed people and other people who are put at risk by a Donald Trump presidency. I hope those people who should absolutely be voting for progressives, for liberals, for leftists, I hope those people get the brunt of the harm that is coming. Because they're the ones that deserve it. Because they're the ones who enabled it to happen in the first place. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Well, they got fooled again. And guess what? Shame on them. And shame on them for all the harm that is coming in the next 4 years. What do you think? Agree, disagree? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends. But not on Facebook until they actually get rid of the fact-checking thing, because I've made some claims that, are just logical conclusions off of what happens, and that's not okay, according to the previous fact-checkers. But anyway, share it, and have a good day. And scene. Anyway. Hey, Kimchi. Concepts of a plan anyway. Yes, concepts of a plan. Now remember, if you are calling in to the show, if you do call into the show, you do need to give me time to answer, because there's you have to press 1 and then I have to accept it. So I'm turning off the audio so everybody doesn't have to hear the call coming in or whatever. But you have to give me a few seconds to do all of this stuff. If Big Hook, if you're the first one that calls in, you will be the first one who you'll be the first who gets whatchamacallit. You'll be the first who actually becomes the guinea pig on this, because the last person who tried to call in, I think it was Mark, was not able to get through or whatever. So let's see. Sue, yes, they want to keep the ACA but get rid of Obamacare. That's the dumbest thing of the whole thing. It's one of the reasons why you heard the words of redneck wisdom earlier. You heard that. One of the things that just blows my mind is that a lot of these people are so stupid. The poorly educated that Donald Trump said he loved after the 2016 Nevada primaries. So stupid. These collective group of people are just idiots. the politicians, the elected officials, etc. Yet, guess what? They managed to win. How they managed to win so much, so many times, is beyond me. And yes, I understand that they're incapable of learning. My point is that why are they capable of winning? I mean, never deny the ability of stupid people in large numbers to do horrible things. Sure. I guess stupid people acting, maybe their collective brain cells are just whatever. Anyway, here we go. Let's see. For some reason, it's coming in on both my phone as well as here, but it should allow mic accents. So let's see. Did this work? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes,
awesome.
I can hear you.
And you're going through online too. So yeah, you are the first official caller on the new Liberal Dan Radio phone lines, and I'm glad it's you, Big Hook, because you make great calls. So again, if you want to call in after Big Hook hangs up, it's 562-LIBDAN1, 562-LIBDAN1. What's going on, Big Hook? How are you today?
Well, I was, Kimchi was saying, oh, she missed my voice, so I guess I'm trying to appease her in one way.
Well, I mean, she is a goddess. You have to appease the goddess. So, I don't blame you for appeasing the goddess Kimchi. So there you go. Anyway, go on.
Yes. Just, I don't know. It just feels like the inauguration seems to feel more and more like America's funeral of democracy. It's we're watching with trepidation as to what's going to happen and thinking, what's the worst he could possibly do? And
don't challenge him with that. We don't want to know that. I mean, you ask him what's the worst he could do, and he'll just far exceed your expectations on that one. Whatever bad we think it might be, it's going to be 10 times worse, at least.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm very grateful that Rachel Maddow has decided to come back 5 days a week and now for the first 100 days, because that means that the one person who doesn't follow the clickbait and go down a rabbit hole which has, no meaning or effect will be looking for the stuff that we need to call out and be on top of, because it's alarming. I mean, we're already seeing the beginnings of it. Apparently in California, they're already racially profiling people and whatnot and apparently someone said that they were already showing up at schools and whatnot, hoping that they can pick up parents and ask for documentation and all that sort of stuff. So, it's not a good start.
No.
So
it hasn't even started yet, because he hasn't even taken his oath of office. And then maybe, you bring up that it feels like a funeral, and yeah, it does. But who would have thought that if at a funeral you'd hear Rascal Flatts, Carrie Underwood, and the Village People? Why are the Village People playing?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand he likes to play, YMCA and Macho Man. I know he loves those two songs, and he'll do his little jerking off two guys dance at the same time thing as he's dancing to that music. But the fact that Village People would be, dishonoring their main fan base by performing at this. I mean, maybe they're hard up for money, but I wouldn't be that hard up for money. I could be destitute, and Donald Trump might say "Oh, I'll pay Liberal Dan to come at the inauguration." I'm like, "F you! I'll find some other way to do it."
Well, maybe they know something that we don't. Maybe they figure, I better grab some money because my health care is about to disappear, and that might be the only way that I'm going to be able to hang on.
Well, true, but there's got to be other ways. You know,
Yeah, no, I
in my
agree.
Facebook memories, there was the story of the pizza guy who got stiffed on a tip, and then he ended up getting like 15 grand or something just from a GoFundMe account for people feeling sorry for him. So, if you know, a friend of mine, the one whatchamacallit, Chris, whose GoFundMe I shared last show, like last Wednesday, was he raised like 5 grand really easily for his, you know, funeral expenses for his dad. So it's just, yeah, you can find other ways than performing at an inauguration. So
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing is it sends a really bad message because, you know, I mean, that was the thing. The lead singer apparently was like, oh, it's not a song about gays, but yet that was what made it such a iconic group, because it basically was, you know, promoting inclusion, right? I mean, that was the thing.
right.
It was supposed to be equity and inclusion. And, you know, I mean, to go and back the one person out there that has been against that. And I mean, let's face it, once he found out that Roy Cohn was gay as well as had contracted AIDS, Trump decided he had no more need of him. You know, I mean, like this has been his whole thing. He will use you and completely use you up, and then when he's finished with you, he will just basically throw you away like a piece of garbage. And you know, I mean,
he'll definitely use people up, chew them up, and spit them out. Unless you're Putin, then he'll swallow.
Yeah, it's I don't know.
Wait, Sue makes a very good point. Somebody said something about paying, about, you know, whether or not they didn't need the money. Sue made a great point. Trump won't pay them. Let's be real. Absolutely. Why would anybody work for Donald Trump? Yeah, I mean, the only way to work for Donald Trump is to get 100% of the money ahead of time. Otherwise, you would never want to do a job for Donald Trump. I mean, I would never want to do it anyway. But yeah, he's made a history of stiffing people. So you get that money up front before performing.
Well, if Rudy Giuliani isn't the poster boy for that, who else is? Or what's his name? Mike, the pillow guy. I mean, he's lost pretty much everything. I mean, talk about you know, not knowing when to cut your losses and to overstep the bounds of decency and you know, paying for it with your life.
Well, I mean, these conservative MAGA types love to, I just lost the train of thought. Go on. I had a comment and it just went right out of my head.
Well, they're anti-science.
What I was going to say is the conservative MAGA types will love to double down on 12. They will always double down on 12. And then when they realize when it fails, they'll do it again because they'll figure, oh, next time it'll be a good play, when it's never a good play. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, even though they're playing with loaded dice, basically, you know, I mean, that's the thing. It's very frustrating to watch civilization crumble at the feet of these billionaires who seem to think that they're smarter than everyone else, when it's not a case of them being smarter. It just means that they're more criminally capable of, you know, manipulating the system and screwing everybody, because via a monopoly, people have no other options.
Right.
And
Donald Trump's an idiot because, you know, he says things like you want to put light into the system and disinfect it into your system or whatever, and then which reminds me, of another dumb fact check. But he'll say that. But yeah, he's still a good con artist. Good con artists. Just because they understand how to con doesn't mean they're smart. It just means they've done the con enough to be able to do it like it's second nature. But
well, not only that, but I mean, the thing is that the reason he has been able to do it is because of the wealth that his father gave him. Because, he basically bankrupts people via lawyers. And, you know, because he knows that he can outlast you because he's got a big enough, you know, lump sum in his bank account or whatever assets, that he can, you know, he can drag it out to the point where you're just like, oh my God, you know.
Well, that's what happened with a lot of his contractors.
There's no,
like the Trump Casino, or whatever, in Atlantic City, and other businesses that he did. He refused to pay them, and he said, "Look, if I'll pay you this amount and not the full amount, and if you don't want to accept that, you'll have to sue me." And then they had to say, "Well, is it worth it suing him? Because then I have to pay the attorney. At the end of the day, I'm going to get less after the lawsuit." But the thing is that one of the reasons why Donald Trump says he loves the poorly educated is some of these fools went back and did more work for him without expecting 100% payment out front. Like, again, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Those people are dumbasses.
Well,
but you know, Donald Trump loves them.
Well, that's the thing. And what gets me is that people say, "Oh, well, he's a smart businessman," and it's like, no, he's a crooked businessman. That's what you're mistaking. He hasn't done anything ever honest in his life. I mean, he cheats on everything. He cheats on his women. He cheats on his taxes. He cheats on the presidency. He lies to his constituents. He threatens them now with the next sugar daddy that he's obtained, which is Elon Musk.
Right.
I mean, Elon now basically goes and says, "Oh, I will fund a primary against you, and you'll lose your cushy job where you just show up and pretend to do work and raise your hand or press the button saying that you agree with the bill and whether or not it goes through." You know, I mean,
right.
Like, where do you go with that? You know, I mean, I don't know.
Golding on Twitch says he cheats at golf. That in itself says everything. But one of the things you pointed out, though, is that, like, you know, a lot of his supporters will be like, he's a smart businessman. No, he's a corrupt businessman. But on the other side of the coin, you have the people in like the mainstream news media, the people who, you know, will talk about how he's a bad businessman because of his bankruptcies. No, he's still, again, a corrupt business person. For that same very reason, he's not. It's not like he failed those businesses because he was bad at it. I mean, he may very well be a dumb business person, but the reason his businesses went bankrupt is because he's corrupt and he used bankruptcy to enrich himself while denying other people the right to get paid for the work that they did for him. So, and nobody in the mainstream media talks about this. Other people, Hal might, Tommy might, Brian might, Chucker John might, but
the New Yorkers knew who. Well, the New Yorkers knew who he was. That's the thing. But the rest of the nation refused to believe them when they said, "This is horseshit." The Apprentice TV show that you've been watching, because nobody conducts business this way. It doesn't work unless you're conning people and you're not getting what you think you're getting. I mean, and let's face it, it's basically been, a money laundering operation for the Russians for the longest time. I mean, oh, gee, I got, dark money, and illegal goods. How do I convert it into a legitimate thing? Oh, convert it into real estate. Oh, well, where can I go to do that? Who will take whatever I have, and without questions? And guess what? It's Donald Trump every single time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, he dealt with the mob. How much mob money did he take? How much Russian oligarch money has he taken? I mean, there's just no end to it. Every blood trail leads to his door. I mean, I don't know. It's so sad that the red states have been dumbed down to the point where they will believe any horseshit that is fed to them. And I'm sorry if I said something that gets you demonetized.
No, I don't think you will. I think it's fine. I mean, we can curse. That's fine. I've heard other channels that curse much more than you have on my channel, or I have on my channel. I curse sometimes too. I do it rarely, but I still do it. See, Ranger Gooseman on Twitch, he still owes E. Jean Carroll what's like $1 billion at this point and rising. Yeah, and who's going to force him to pay that once he takes office? I mean, she'll have to wait for at least 4 years, and then she'll probably have to sue his estate after he kicks the bucket. Which
well, then the other question is who and what Satan spawn of Satan will he appoint after he replaces Alito and Thomas?
Right.
That's the other thing, because I mean, at this point, I mean, I don't know what's is there, you know.
I would not be surprised if we see Cannon, Justice Cannon, on the.
Yeah, well, that's why I said it feels more like the inauguration is the funeral of democracy for America, at that point, I mean, everyone is bought off.
Wait, hold on. Progressively Independent said Cannon from Florida just immediately after I said it, which I know because of the delay, they didn't hear me say it when they typed it, and I didn't see them type it when I said it, which is one of those weird things that happen with the broadcast delay. So, you know, brilliant minds think alike, I suppose. So.
Well, it's funny because, like, I mean, this morning we've got some trolls in the Stephanie Miller chat that she's been running with no mods on YouTube in the morning, and you know, and guys they're just putting out stuff. They're saying, "Oh, Malcolm Nance is not legitimate." Oh, you know, there's another one there that goes after Hal Sparks and says, and Hal Sparks makes money, and it's like, hello.
Oh no!
Everyone
Hal
has
Sparks
to work
makes
for
money
a living.
Doing a good job at what he does. The horror, like, yeah, that's how this is supposed to work. You know, if you do a good job, and I mean, I think I do a good job. I don't make as much money as I'd like to, but still, you know, when people think I do a good job, they throw up a super chat. When people think I do a good job, they subscribe to the channel or become a member or whatever. Like, that's how this works. You know.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. There, you know, like even Politics Girl, she did it for as long as she possibly could, and then she had to basically go out and put out a premium and say, thank you, you know, I can't do this unless you support me. And the other thing is I wonder how much longer alternative views are going, or liberal views are going to be around on YouTube, because at this point they're about the only ones that are currently not caving. And I'm wondering, because Tony Michaels is saying already they won't tell them why they demonetize them all the time, and you know, and they keep saying whatever, I think he says traffic violation, and he says, what does that mean? And they won't give him a straight answer.
Right.
You know, and like, how can you play the game if you don't know what the rules are and no one will explain them? And, you know, like, what are you supposed to do if you don't have the means to sue them or force them to explain what they mean? Where do you go? I mean, this freedom of speech thing has been taken to extremes where, you know,
conservatives don't understand freedom of speech. They think freedom of speech means freedom of, like, consequences from the speech, freedom of criticism from that speech, and they also think that, you know, well, first of all, thank you, Marie and Jolie, for the super chats and super stickers. Appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for that. But yeah, they have no idea what freedom of speech is, what freedom of speech means, what, you know, at all. They just want to be able to say whatever it is they want to say without anybody combating them. And I do worry a little bit about what might happen in the Trump Justice Department with, you know, Pat Bondi, who lied off of her ass today. Who, you know, what if Trump does use them to go after YouTube and say you can't have these people on your platform because they're slandering me or libeling me or whatever? It's dangerous.
And she wouldn't answer the question. She wouldn't answer the question. Will you go after Trump's enemies? And she wouldn't say, no, I won't. I represent the people only, not the president. And, you know, And
Right.
I mean that itself. I mean, this is the thing. Just like with the Hegseth,
Mm-hmm.
everything he says is a disqualification.
Yep.
I mean, he said, "Oh, they're all anonymous smear campaigns." I mean,
Yeah, he didn't deny that it
Come
happened. He just
on.
said it's anonymous smears. I'm like, but it could be true anonymous smears. I mean, just because you're smeared, it doesn't mean it's not true. But but he does, because he doesn't want to, be said, oh, I lied under oath or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's tragic what's going to be happening. And one of the things that conservatives just don't seem to get is that conservatives want Pat Bondi. Trump wants Pat Bondi to be his attorney, to do his dirty work, to go after everybody, his political enemies. So they don't understand that that's not how other presidents have done it. They don't understand how, like, Biden gave, Garland more autonomy than maybe he should have. Maybe there should be some presidential, like, hey, do this. Hey, let me check in on your job that you're doing to make sure that you're, doing what needs to be done for the American people. But Democratic presidents typically take a hands-off approach, and they can't understand that. So that's why they believe that Biden is, like, pulling the strings of Garland and using Garland to go after others. But in reality, Democratic presidents tend to give the Justice Department more autonomy. Thank you for subscribing to the channel and becoming a liberal Danimal, progressively independent. Appreciate you. Midas Sue goes, only anonymous because he made them sign NDAs. Exactly. That's the thing. You make them sign NDAs so that they can't talk about it, and then he can claim they're anonymous, and therefore they're not truthful. Oh, and
but
P-Dubs, thank
what?
you for joining, P-Dubs. I forgot to say P-Dubs, hello to P-Dubs when she came in, so sorry for cutting you off. Go ahead.
But that's only but the thing is that's only possible because basically people on a monetary level within the U.S. are financially desperate.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they finally get to the point where they say, I caught you, they go, I have an offer you can't refuse.
Right.
I can make your life better in much more ways than you possibly ratting me out. Because, I mean, let's face it, they know that the press doesn't pay for the story anymore. They'll report it and make their own money and bona fides off of it. But,
Right.
We don't pay for sources anymore. We don't, I mean,
First of all, thank you, Aaron, for resubscribing, for continuing to be a Danimal for 12 months. Appreciate you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's hard not to be depressed. It feels like the world is on fire, not just LA, but the world is on fire. And that, we're basically rolling down a hill towards a cliff, which will, lead to our end. And, the end of the suffering will be when we hit rock bottom and splatter into a million pieces. It's just, I mean, we've ignored climate change to the point now where it's biting us every day. The 500-year storm is now happening every 2 years.
Right.
The hurricanes are beyond, I mean, what are we up to right now with the damage that the hurricanes and the fires in California have done? We're almost up to $500 billion.
Oh yeah.
I mean, where does it? Where do we go? I mean, yes, we have to change. I mean, but the question is, are we going to change fast enough to make the difference? I mean, and the same thing. I mean, you look at California as well as Florida and North Carolina or whichever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think the lumber's going to come to rebuild those communities?
Right.
It's going to come from Canada.
Yep.
And if you slap a 25% tariff on it, how many people are not going to be able to afford to rebuild?
Or they're going to rebuild with substandard, materials that are not wood, but might not be as, or either it's going to be more expensive because they have to use steel, but then the steel then the demand for steel goes up, which means steel is more expensive because demand's higher, and so the supply then drops as more people use steel for building, and then maybe they use concrete, but then demand for that goes up, and all because Trump has this idea that he wants to punish people with tariffs because he doesn't care about what the American people pay because he can afford it, so why worry about it? So.
Well, here's the thing. Canada, we feel like we're your best friend, but then when we turn our backs, you go around and screw our girlfriend and then say, oh, what did you expect me to do? It's like, we expected you to be our
Trump,
best
it's not
friend.
consensual. With Trump, he just grabs him by the hoo-ha, but...
Yes, but, this is the point. We have been responsible holders of our resources, and we have done things under environmentally safe means, and we have, as a result, done things in a way that subsidizes you guys.
Right.
And this is what we get in return? Oh, we're going to make you into the 51st state? It's like, no, you aren't.
Right.
That's complete bullshit. And the fact that you say it means that you really believe that your Republican constituents are that freaking stupid.
Well, he believes that because they are. He wants them to be. He loves them. That's 2016 Nevada primaries. I love the poorly educated. Only people I've ever heard him say that he loves, as a group of people at least. I don't know if he said that he loves his children. He pretty much said that he wants to fuck his daughter, but I don't know if he actually has ever said publicly that he loves his children. But he does say he loves the poorly educated. So.
But this is the thing that concerns me is that we're teaching a whole new generation of people that the only way to get ahead is to screw other people who, don't have the means to fight back. And, you add to that misinformation, lack of education, and guns that are available to people who are not mentally fit to, operate in polite society. And, what's that line from Backdraft? Robert De Niro says, yeah, it's mice with matches.
Right.
That's the level of stupidity that comes through. It's just,
Yeah. Michael McAndrews in the YouTube chat goes, are coup attempts against the USA okay now? Well, it seems like it was back in 2020 because that's what Trump and his insurrectionists tried to do. Maybe that's one of the things we'll do instead of going over and watching the Trump taking the oath of office, is maybe we'll go over the document at that point of that Jack Smith had released or whatever with with what's going on. Thank you, Sue, for the super chat. Appreciate you. But yeah, maybe that is just something that we can go over just to see all of the dirty details. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I know there are way more good people out there than there are bad people. But the problem is that, and I think this is pretty solidly found on a solid foundation, is that silence is complicity. Mm-hmm. And that means if you don't vote, you're just as guilty as the Republicans are, yep. who have taken us down this disastrous road to ruin. It's
and not even the Republicans though. It's you got you have labor, you have people like the Teamsters, like a majority of the Teamsters, like the Teamsters didn't endorse it all, but the majority of the Teamsters thought that Trump was the better choice than Vice President Harris. And it's like, what are you talking about? And in my memories the other day on Facebook, I had shared a memory that the Teamsters had shared 4 years ago basically talking about like trickle-down economics and talking about like, how it doesn't work, and using the analogy I use all the time of Lucy with the football. Like people keep believing that they'll be able to kick the football the next time Lucy puts it up. People believing that the conservatives will bring you what you want. And I responded like 4 years afterwards. I was like, yeah, but y'all voted, most of your people, you chose to not endorse in this election. A majority of your members voted for Donald Trump. So you basically have become Charlie Brown in this scenario, believing that Donald Trump's going to hold the football for you this time because for some reason you thought Harris was not a better choice. And like for union members to vote Republicans is one of the stupidest things they could do. So. Wow, P-Dubs gifted 10 Liberal Dan memberships. Thank you so much, P-Dubs. That's amazing. Appreciate you.
Well, I don't know. I'm shaking my head. I'm hoping for the best for you guys, but I have my doubts as to where it's going to end, because I have the suspicion that you guys are going to dig yourself into a hole. Mm-hmm. And the worst part is that the nations like China are going to be able to, let's face it, Taiwan has got to be wondering what their fate is going to be, because with him rolling into office, and unless Taiwan.
Oh yeah, Taiwan screwed. Tehran screwed. Ukraine screwed. Like there are a lot of people. A lot of people are going to die because Donald Trump was elected in office across the world, simply because of the fact that Donald Trump's not going to stand up to China against Taiwan. Donald Trump is not going to stand up to Russia against Ukraine. Donald Trump is not going to stand up to anybody who is, either pulling his strings or who he feels is going to harm him politically for doing so. For some reason, these Republicans used to hate Putin, like back in 2012 when Obama had that like hot mic moment, when he says after the election's over, I'll be able to deal with y'all more specifically or whatever. And, I don't know what he was talking about. I don't remember. It wasn't the smartest thing for him to say, especially with a hot mic, but they used to think that Putin was evil, and now they think Putin's great and wonderful, all because Putin supports Donald Trump. So
yeah, but remember the good old days when the scandal of Obama was Dijon mustard and a gray suit or a tan suit.
Yes, Dijon mustard and a tan
on.
suit. Yeah, well, I don't know I don't remember the Dijon mustard thing. Maybe, but the tan suit thing was just pure racism. Just like, Michelle Obama, she doesn't wear sleeves. She wears sleeveless dresses. Therefore, she's, not classy. Then they elect Donald Trump, whose wife has posed in nude in magazines and also wore sleeveless, outfits. Now, look, I don't have a problem with people. If you consent to it and you want to pose in nudie mags or whatever, I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. If she want to do that, she'd be good for her. But it's hypocrisy, for conservatives to not criticize the one while they criticize the other. So, but that's
yeah. But the thing is,
right
is that they uphold her as something, classy. And the thing is that, let's face it, she married Trump to be in the circles of people that would give her access to influence. That's the thing. Her English isn't all that good. And to say that she qualified for, what was it, the Einstein visa or whatever, with what?
She supposedly
an architecture?
She supposedly knows multiple languages or whatever. I don't know exactly the list or the pure number, but you can be intelligent and not speak English well. That's I'm not questioning her intelligence because of how poorly she speaks English. I'm questioning her intelligence because she married Donald Trump. There had to have been other wealthy people who she could have got with that were much better specimens in all areas than Orange Fool.
Well, not only that, but she met Trump via Epstein. That alone. She met him on Epstein's plane.
Hold on a second. Sue
That,
says
at
she's
least
leaving.
that's
Thank you, Sue. Thank you for joining the chat. And P-Dubs asking the chat, anyone else boycotting the inauguration? We here on Liberal Dan Radio are boycotting the inauguration. We are not going to watch Donald Trump lie to Chief Justice Roberts. We are going to be live here on YouTube while the inauguration is going on, just so we can talk about other things, maybe talk about the documents that were released by Jack Smith,
Yeah.
and also keeping an eye out on any executive orders that come after noon on Eastern time. So anyway, you're gonna ask another question?
Well, we were going to talk about TikTok, and the thing is that
yes.
Doesn't that seem like a psyop thing? Because the thing is that China leveraged these people because now they are reliant on TikTok for revenue because YouTube effectively doesn't pay for their platforms. They don't pay well for shorts. Dude has stated that as such as well. And I mean,
I have gotten more views on shorts though than I have on a lot of my other videos, which have generated a little more. So some of my shorts have made more money than some of my longer form videos, but then again, I'm not monetized on TikTok either, so it's hard to compare the two. So I don't know what revenue on TikTok looks like because I was never able to get the 10,000 followers on TikTok. I agree with you, I've agreed with Hal in somewhat where the idea that TikTok may very well be a psyop, not necessarily because of the actual software itself and on whatever information it might take from your phone or whatever, but my kind of idea was that they've basically pushed you to see certain information. They want you to, the algorithm is like, hey, you should see this. This is on your quote for you page. So if this is for you, then they want you to see it. And so that's the psyop part for me. That's the part where they're trying to tell people this is what you should watch. Now I've used TikTok as a tool to create videos or whatever, but I think the Supreme Court
but
will
now
come
that
out. Go ahead.
TikTok is dying, they're pushing Red Note, which is basically a communist manifesto of beliefs, which is once again indoctrination of Chinese ideals and whatnot, which is basically a handbook written by Xi. I mean, it just gets to the point where you're like, okay, how does that old saying go? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
I mean, Tim is like or Twitter is a psyop now. I mean, that's probably as well true as well, that they're gonna, they even Musk even said that he's gonna stop, negativity, because if people talk mean, I guess, about people, or especially about him, he'll probably push down those posts in the algorithm. So there's that, so there's all sorts of psyops or whatever. I missed something. There's one thing, Progressively Independent says, I thought China decided not to sell it, but it doesn't matter if China decides not to sell it if the Supreme Court follows through with Donald Trump's request and at least puts a stay on enforcement of the ban that's supposed to come into effect on Sunday. Some news agency down here was like talking about how it might happen, like it could happen, but sometime this week. Well, it has to happen sometime this week. If it doesn't, then the ban's going to go into effect. But
but here's the thing. Here's the thing that gets me about YouTube as well as TikTok, is that they say it's free speech,
right?
But if you cross a line, they demonetize you, which is basically forcing you to not exercise your free speech because you now have to play by their rules, which means that your speech is their speech. And
I understand that though a little bit, because YouTube has terms and guidelines or whatever, and ultimately YouTube doesn't want to do anything that's going to upset their advertisers, and as such they want to make sure that the things that go on their platform are things that aren't going to ruin their money. Just like I am free to, if I didn't think that somebody was somebody who I'd want to talk to on the phone, I'm free to deny their phone call. I'm free to, not have people talk about what they want to talk about on my show. I'm free to, my moderators are free to delete chats, messages they don't agree with or whatever. And, that's that's not a violation of their free speech. It's just their free speech rights. If they want to say what they want to say, they can have their own platform. It's just a lot of these large platforms make it somewhat easier to share it because of the fact that a lot of people use it. Oh, we have a something. What is that? It's just a follow. So thank you for the follow. Over on Twitch.
Yeah, well, my thing is it's weird because the thing is that like dude does things, but then, and he seems to get away with basically bashing these people that just try to promote lies and and he fact checks them in real time, but then he'll end up having a mass report of the trolls who will then shut him down or have his account shut down for 7 days until he can return. And then unless he has 3 to 4 backup accounts, he can't get back on the internet, and
that's one of the reasons why a lot of the creators are more active with putting content on their Patreons. I mean, I have a rather small Patreon, and I haven't had any problems with the monetization here, which is why I do post some things to my Patreon, but that's why a lot of people have resorted to using the Patreon instead of other ones. Like, for example, there's one kind of nerdy channel that I follow that like kind of reviews all sorts of nerdy shows like Star Trek or whatever, and they can't their videos can't show more than like 10 minutes of the copyrighted material, or else it gets flagged or taken down. So they'll post the full episodes or the full reviews or the full watches on their Patreon, and just have bits and pieces on YouTube, which basically they use YouTube to push their Patreon. So
it blows your mind, because if you overthink it, you see everything is hypocrisy on steroids.
Oh yeah.
It boggles the mind that so many smart people can be silenced, who only want what's best for the majority, and the people who want to take advantage of everybody and everything and leave you destitute and penniless,
right?
Intellectually as well as monetarily, are allowed to, skirt the rules and, better yet, or even worse, just buy up the platform. Oh, gee, I don't like you being able to say that, so I'll buy up the platform so you can't say it anywhere.
Right.
I mean
that's kind of what Musk did, right? He bought Twitter because he didn't like what's going on Twitter. So there you go.
Yeah. Tony Michaels was saying before, it's looking more and more like people who want to have a voice within the community are going to go to Substack. And it's looking more and more like that may be the option, because there aren't a whole lot of other platforms. I mean, apparently Blue Sky now is getting inundated with Russian trolls, as Tom Hartman was saying this morning.
I haven't noticed the Russian trolls yet on Blue Sky. I have noticed some of the porn bots, or the obvious porn bots. I haven't seen porn content show up, but I've seen like what clearly look like porn. At least in my opinion, it looks like porn bots. I don't know if they may very well also be Russian trolls that are porn bots too, but I don't know yet. But I have noticed some odd follows that I'm like, no, I'm not going to be following them back over on Blue Sky. Everybody who wants to follow me over the social media, it's Liberal Dan Radio ever, Liberal Dan Radio on Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Blue Sky. So just everybody who's
I'm only on YouTube. I don't go to any of the other platforms other than, I think, what is the other thing, whatever it is, with the Twitter thing. Discord, is it? I think.
Well, Discord is just kind of like another. I do have a Discord as well, but that's currently just for, I think, patrons have access to it, but we don't use the Discord much either. I need to look into how to beef up the Discord as well, because that could also be used for like private type shows or whatever. But we'll get there. We'll cross that bridge when you get there. Do want to handle with other comments. Is there anything else you want to say, Big Hook, before I let you go? Because at some point I need to finish tonight so I can go and edit all these videos.
I'm sorry I ate up
no,
so much
don't apologize.
time.
I could have hung up on you any other time, but I enjoy having you call in. So.
Well, I enjoy chatting with you as well. I just feel like we are staring down the barrel of a gun, and we have to decide what we're going to do, because at this point there isn't a bullet in the chamber, but we have to do something soon, and we have to change something, because the votes weren't there this time around, and that was the biggest disappointment of all, because if you disenfranchise people and don't give them hope or something to strive for, you lose them. And they just become robots that basically do what's necessary to feed and house themselves, and that's it. And that's where their political engagement begins and ends.
Yep.
So,
all right. Well, thank you,
anyway,
Big Hook. Appreciate you. Call back any other show. Definitely appreciate you calling in, and I hope you have a good rest of your night. As good as it can be with the impending doom on Monday.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And thank you for having me on and giving us a voice, because believe it or not, Canada and I do care about you guys.
Well,
anyway,
at least some of us care about Canada as well. So drink a Molson or a Labatt's for me, and have a good one.
You as well. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, that was Big Hook, everybody. Again, we probably may have time for if anybody else wants to call in for a short call. But again, 562 LibDan1, 562 LibDan1, 562. What's the actual numbers of it? 542-3261 is the call, is the number to call if you do want to call in. So I did want to say one thing about the fact that. Let's see, we have Ranger Gooseman over on Twitch said a while back, no one is talking about Project 2025, which is still in play. I talked about Project 2025 earlier in the show, so I will continue to talk about Project 2025 and watch as they implement it, in real time. We will cover it, absolutely. We will make sure to, that's one of the other stupid fact checks, though, is that people that were trying to say that Agenda 47 and Project 2025 are the same thing, and they're like, no, they're not. The dumbass fact checkers, no, they're not. Well, they're similar. They're close enough. And Agenda 47 was basically Project 2025 for dummies. Not that Project 2025 isn't for dummies, but it's even more so for dummies. But yeah, I mean, like somebody else said something about the coup, like a potential, I think one of the responsibilities, like there's two things that can happen with the Trump presidency. There's I've always said, since he said he wanted to be dictator on day one, and conservatives will be like, well, you can't. That's probably another stupid thing that they would fact check. In America, you can't have a dictator because it's against the rules. But yeah, you can have a de facto dictator. You could have a dictator in practice simply because he has the Supreme Court. He has 5 locked up votes on the Supreme Court. He has Congress. He has, both houses of Congress. He has the presidency. He controls all 3 branches of government. So if he's going to control all 3 branches of the government, and if they're not going to question anything he does, it doesn't matter if he's not a dictator in name, if he's a dictator as an end result, because if they're going to rubber stamp everything he wants, if they're going to pass any legislation he wants, if they're going to not rule against him anytime he doesn't want them to rule against him, which is clearly all the time he'll want them to protect him, then he can be a de facto dictator, even if he's not technically a dictator in name. But in reality, if Donald Trump does become a dictator, if he does, cross that line, I'll point this out, and I will make a point to point this out every day of the week and twice on Sunday if needed to. Is that do you remember back in Egypt when the Egyptian military stepped in and basically stopped, tyrant from taking over, and as such allowed for a democratic election to take place? The Egyptian military did what they needed to protect their entire nation from a horrible despot. Our military has the same responsibility. Our military has the responsibility to stand up against Donald Trump, to stand up against Pete Hegseth, to stand up against any person, any enemy of everybody in the military takes an oath to protect our nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic. If Donald Trump proves himself to be an actual physical enemy and crosses line, I mean, I believe he's an enemy with whatever he does, but if he does himself, if he crosses whatever line would be deemed, the armed forces would deem necessary to actually take action, then the military has responsibility to step in and stop him from doing that. Period. End of story. And of course, the MAGA folks will be mad because, you know, they're not going to like a military standing up to their Fuhrer. But, you know, and how many people in the military would actually do that? I don't know. I want to believe that it's more than the ones who wouldn't. Just like, you know, the conservatives will talk about on January 6th, where, oh, there's video that shows police officers letting these people through the barricades. That's because those police officers were in on it, and those police officers were criminals too. That's the simple explanation. So let's see. Ranger Gooseman also says, look at Kentucky. For 50 years, they voted for Mitch the Glitch. Yeah, I mean, former Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is definitely an example of people voting against their best interest. But again, Kentucky votes for Mitch the Glitch, but yet they also voted for a Democratic governor. Which is the thing, one of the things that Big Hook said that, you know, I did want to respond to is that, you know, the votes weren't there. I would say the votes were there. You had, the Michigan senator who got reelected, who's a Democrat? The votes were there. You just had enough people who voted for a white person who didn't want to vote for a black person. The votes were there in Arizona. A Democratic Congress senator won in Arizona. But you had enough people in Arizona who were willing to vote for a guy, but were not willing to vote for a woman. No sexism. You had the people in Florida. The vote should have existed in Florida. I mean, I don't want to take the Lawrence O'Donnell route and say, you know, that these people will teach the Republicans a lesson because Lawrence O'Donnell's a dumbass when he suggested that. But the point is that you did have a significant number of people who voted for abortion rights in Florida, yet voted for the person who required you to vote for abortion rights in the first place, because it never should have been up for a vote, because we never should have had Roe versus Wade overturned in the first place. So the votes should have been there, but they were not. You had people in North Carolina who voted for their Democratic governor against their Nazi gubernatorial Republican candidate, the black Nazi, so-called black Nazi, as he referred to himself supposedly on that whatever porn site it was. But again, they voted for him. They voted for the Democratic man, but they refused to vote for the black Democratic woman. Because sexism is alive and well in this country. Racism is alive and well in this country. And that's part of the reason why we have Donald Trump again coming in and to be our dictator on day one, is because you had enough people in enough states who were willing to vote for Democrats for other reasons, be it sexism and or racism, that elected Democrats at a statewide, you know, at the state level, or at a state as a statewide vote, they voted for Democrats, but did not vote for Harris. Or at least enough of them decided that they were going to split the ticket, because that makes sense with Donald Trump. Jan, I'm not sure about military setting up to Orange Mussolini. No, I'm not sure about it either. I'm not convinced that they will, but they have a responsibility to do regardless. Now, whether or not they hold on and embrace that responsibility, that remains to be seen. But they still have that responsibility. Dean does believe the military will stand up to Trump. It will depend. We will see what happens, right? We will absolutely see what happened. Jeff Curry, Hegseth says women could be in ground combat, so that means not in air or water. Which is funny because you would think the military would have less problems with women being on, like, you know, submarines and, you know, and other naval vessels, and also flying, you know, jets and helos and other, you know, vehicles and stuff. You know, because a lot of times they think, oh, they can't be the grunts in the military because women are traditionally this, that, or the other. When again, it shouldn't matter. what gender you are. It should matter if you're capable of doing the job. If you're capable of doing the job and you're a woman, you should be able to do it just as if you're capable of doing the job. I know if I was drafted into the military as I am now, I would be incapable of doing the job. I have bad knees. I'm overweight. I get winded easily because of those bad knees and me being overweight. I would not be a person who would serve well in the military at all. And there are plenty of women who do a much better job than I would. And I'm concerned that under Pete Hegseth, you're going to see rapes in the military go up. One of the problems with TikTok is I would have to say grapes at that point, because TikTok doesn't allow you to have responsible and reasonable conversations about factual issues such as sexual assault and rape, such that you have to call it grape. You have to call murder unaliving. It's stupid. It's one of the stupid things. One of the many stupid things about TikTok. But again, I've always viewed TikTok as simply a tool to try and promote the podcast and nothing else. Because I definitely didn't trust or whatever the algorithm whatsoever. So, P-dubs, it's hard to recognize our country at this point. I believe that there are more good people in America than bad, though. I do agree with that. Unfortunately, not enough came out and vote, or not enough of them couldn't vote. Let's see. Then please take Cruz back. I wish. That's why they want to replace all generals and admirals and anyone in power with loyalists, so that can't happen. That's a good point, Rager Gooseman over on Twitch. One thing I do want to point out, where I don't think you can you just have to call in to 562 LibDan1. You don't just have to call in live during the show. I believe if you wish, you could also, if you wanted to leave me a short message, you could leave me a short voicemail message on there, and I could play it if you wish. If you leave me, if you do leave me a voicemail message, I'll probably play it on the air, unless you specifically say not to. You can also, I believe, send a text message to it. So if you thought of something clever or good to say, or something that you might want me to talk about over the course of the show, or might want to bring to my attention, you can always send me a text message to 562 LibDan1 as well. So you can, because I do have one right here that someone said, just saying what's up. So 562, again, 542-3261. You could call, you can text, you can send a voicemail after hours as well. Big Hook. Hegseth strikes me as a guy that girls cover their drinks when he appears. You think? I wouldn't be surprised to hear that he or people like him have roofied people in the past. So, but yeah, one of the things, the California fires, who's helping out in the California fires? You have people coming from other states, but you also have people coming from Mexico and Canada. And we now have somebody who's going to be taking the lie of office in 5 days, or less than 5 days at this point, who is going to berate, and attack our neighbors to the north and south. So, there's that. See, no president has ever threatened to unalive a general like he did with Milley. Yeah, maybe we don't know. Maybe there was some president back in the day who also made the same sort of thing, but it's unlikely. So you have a good point. See, progressively independent, there are good people here, but I feel myself looking at people with hate because I don't know who is against me. What kind of life is that? I just want to live in peace. Exactly. You have to question almost everything at this point, because it's, how do you know who to trust? Well, hopefully we can trust everybody here at Liberal Dan Radio. Hopefully, we found a good community here. And yes, I will actively debate conservatives on the show when they call in, or if they're in the chat, as long as they are well behaved. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. And a lot of people are not trustworthy. If you voted for Donald Trump, why should I trust you? There are very scant few individuals that I can look at and say, despite the fact that they voted for Donald Trump, I would still trust them on certain issues. But it's few and far between. I could probably count them on one hand. I could probably count them on one finger. That would be the finger, right? Anyway, trust your friends very well. Sometimes don't even trust your friends, because I had people who I thought were friends during the pandemic who absolutely turned on me. 100%. So, that happens too. Let's see, also heard indigenous people have sent their firefighters, can't remember which tribe. Well, of course, because, despite the fact that indigenous people are marginalized and oppressed in this country, they're still willing to do the right thing. Many people who are marginalized and oppressed want to do the right thing because, they know how it is to be treated like crap and don't want to treat others like crap. So, Anyway. Jan, come on, Jeff, be offensive. Let's see, Jeff, I thought of a really funny joke I'd like to tell, but I know it would offend some. Well, you could always text it to me. Jeff, I offended somebody last night with less. You can always send it as a text, and I can determine whether or not it goes too far for the show. 562-LIBDAN1, 562-542-3261. If you want to send that text message, that's fine. I think I just remember last night, we are 2.5 hours in, or almost. So Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. Again, Mondays, Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Central, here on YouTube, liberaldanradio.com or twitch.tv/liberaldanradio. Support the show by, again, helping the algorithm out. Like, share, subscribe, comment, respond to other people's comments. Get the algorithm going up. The more, if we had like active conversations going on these videos that I post, that would probably help the algorithm a whole heck of a lot. So, let's see. One of the other things I thought. Somebody had said, who is it? Ranger Gooseman said, Hal is a robot with everything he does. I don't think he ever stops. When I first read that comment, I first was like, Hal's a robot. What? Hal's not a bot. And then I read the second part. I don't think he ever stops. Oh, you mean by that? Yes. Hal is definitely a very hard-working individual when it comes to all of the stuff that he does via, going live twice a day on most days, with all the stuff that he does with that. His other stuff, his touring, his stand-up comedy, his nerd Halen, all that other stuff that he does. How does he find the time to do it? I don't know. But anyway. Jan, I've never found Jeff to be offensive, just hilarious. I've never found Jeff to be offensive either. And I like the fact that me and Jeff can bond on Uranus. Fudge Factory. 2 bartenders walk into a restaurant, both get kicked out for eating too much. Termite walks into the bar, asks the bartender, or asks, is the bartender here? I fucked up the joke. There you go. Yes. Let me restart the joke. Termite walks into a bar. He asks, hey, is the bartender here? That's the joke. Hey, Big Hook, $20 Canadian. That's 20 loonies or 10 toonies. From Big Hook. Thank you so much, Big Hook. Appreciate that. This may very well be like the best show when it comes to actual, y'all giving. And look, I appreciate anything that y'all do. And again, I've always said the best thing right now is always to do that. But that will buy me some ciders at Cider, which is excellent. But thank you so much, Big Hook. I appreciate you so much. Not just for that super chat, but also for the great calls. Yes, I did know that Uranus is on Route 66. I thought it should have been on Route 69, but it would be funny if they actually changed the sign around and made it Route 69 upside down, made one of the 6 flip. But yeah, so I did know that Uranus is on Route 66. I better go get it. Horrible walks into a bar jokes like the old one. Horse walks into the bar, wide and long face. There was some beer commercial. I think it was a Bud Light commercial, but it could have been something else, where you had all of the people walking into the bar who would be in a walk into a bar joke. Like you had a table of a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead sitting at a table at the bar. Then you had a horse walked into the bar, and the blonde goes, I don't get it. Which, if you were smart enough to catch at the time, you realize that she's not getting the joke about the horse being asked why the long face. So... Dean, I used to live on Highway 69. Nice. So, there's always two guys walk into a bar. You would think the second one would have ducked. There's always the how many whatever does it take to screw in a light bulb. 2 of my favorites of those types of jokes are, how many mice does it take to screw in a light bulb? 2, but how'd they fit inside the light bulb? And also, how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? 1, but the light bulb has to really want to change. So, see, Scott, hey, all you Danners, just checking in. It's basketball season, so no politics no too little politics for me. That's fine. I mean, watch basketball. That's cool. I mean, we have the Pelicans here, unfortunately. I mean, here's my Pelicans cup. So, clearly, I've been to games. I am a fan, but... yeah, the Pelicans have been sucking, the worst record in the West, and every year Zion Williamson misses like 10 gajillion games, so we'll finally unload Zion, trade him for somebody, or just let his contract go and let him go sign somewhere else, and then he'll be healthy the rest of his career. Anyway. So, yeah, also DB Golding said over on when I were talking about it having everybody's information, the point was made, TikTok already has everybody's information, which I think is a good point. If they wanted your information, they have your information. So if you have downloaded TikTok, it's already there. But that being said, I don't take as strong of a stance against TikTok like people like Hal, just because of the fact that in the corporation that I work for, again, we've had situations where we discuss technology security and basically keeping information secure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the person who was, I guess, the consultant who created the video that was used to teach us all about cybersecurity at the end of the thing told us, hey, you can go watch my TikTok at this is my channel on TikTok. I'm like, well, if a cybersecurity person is recommending that people use TikTok, I might not believe that it's as bad as it is, that people say it is. One of our family friends also, the husband is also a cybersecurity guy. He's very anal about what he will let people go on his network. He's very anal about what he'll let people, put on their phones that he pays for or that they pay for. He has no problem with his wife using TikTok in their network, so that says a lot to me as well. He doesn't want them using Temu, so that's I guess damning, I guess, on Temu for that. But my issue with Temu is simply that they offer a lot of clothes that are nice, that fit me as a fat person, that most other places don't have. You have to be careful about what the size is. Like if you wear like a 3X, you might have to get a 6X or something to be able to have it fit properly. But I have a lot of clothes that I wouldn't be able to buy anywhere else simply because of that application. And as a fat person, I either have to choose to wear just solid color, boring stuff, or choose to use an app that might be questionable that allows me to get nicer looking clothing. Of course, this wasn't Temu. This is just, I think, a Facebook shop or whatever, but it's Stitch and Grogu, and I, as a nerd and a Disney freak and a Star Wars geek, I couldn't say no to that shirt, especially because it was available in my size. So Temu bugs you too much with all of the fluff. Yeah, I guess, but whatever. Anyway, I think I missed the other things, but Jolie put one of them. If you want to support the show again one time, you can support with Venmo. Just use friends and family because you're not buying anything. You can go to liberaldan.com, click the Buy Me Cider button, or go to buymecoffee.com/liberaldanradio. That will do another, I guess, one-time contribution. I think I get more of a percentage off of it on Venmo, but again, any help you can give is great. Amazon Prime doesn't cost you anything to subscribe, or to subscribe on Twitch. Otherwise, you can follow over there for free. Subscribing here is free, but being a Liberal Danimal is at least $2 a month. There's other options that are higher, but I haven't really utilized the difference in those levels yet. Some videos I have made members only first, and it's just been for all members. But anyway, that's all the different ways that you can support. It's 5 Eggs. Hey, what's going on? 5 Eggs and Steven Sayers. Good to see you both. Thank you for stopping by the chat, even though we're kind of winding things up. Michael McAndrews, I can't wait for Dumpy Stump to move to Greenland. Problem is, he probably doesn't want to move to Greenland. He probably just wants to own it so he can say, I was able to get Greenland from the Dutch. That makes me awesome. And then do whatever he is. Again, I'm convinced that Donald Trump thinks Greenland is all greenery. Like that there's no ice there, there's no snow there. It's just all lush green lands. He'd probably, if he was able to convince Denmark to sell him Greenland, or sell the United States Greenland, he'd probably travel there and be like, what's with all the snow? Why is it so white here? Which is not something you'd usually hear from a conservative MAGA folk. Usually they want things to be whiter there. So, again. Anyway. Thank you, P-Dubs, again, for your gifted memberships. Appreciate you. Again, also thanks to the mods, Aaron and Jolie, the mod squad, who are great. I am going to go ahead and shut down the call line at this point. I don't think anybody else is calling in. But however, again, I think you can leave me a message. I think you can leave me a voicemail if you wish. So you can do that if you want. If you want to call 562-LIBDAN1, 542-3261 if you want to leave a voicemail, and I'll play it and respond to it at a future show. You could also send a text message if you want to send a question that you think of outside of the show. Or you could just respond to videos that I have. That might actually be better for the algorithm if you actually respond to anything message-wise. But yes, Progressively Independent, this is absolutely going to be rough. These next 4 years are going to prove why we're an embarrassment. And you're going to have a bunch of people finding out who are going to be like, oh, this is why this was a bad idea. It's one of the reasons why I need to get my t-shirt designed, because I have this idea and I want it to be able to be sold through my stepsister's site. So therefore, we'll try and get that up sooner rather than later, so you can start buying Liberal Dan shirts off of there as well. Hey, Diane, good to see you as well. 21st Century Suffragettes. I think I have the link to that on my Friends of the Show page on liberaldan.com. Again, liberaldan.com is the blog for the podcast and the main website for the podcast, but liberaldanradio.com sends you to the YouTube channel. But thank you, Diane, for coming along and saying hello, even though we're at the end of the show. But I appreciate you muchly for stopping by. Basically, I'm just going to chit-chat a little longer until Big Hook's super chat goes away, because I want to give, if you're gonna spend that much for a super chat, I'm gonna keep talking until the super chat disappears. So that might be an interesting way to keep me online. It's just to keep sending super chats every time I want to end the show. Oh, there's a new super chat. Let's keep talking. That would be funny. So, but again, everybody who's coming new, we are not watching the inauguration live here on Liberal Dan Radio, but we will be airing Liberal Dan Radio. We'll call it maybe the on-inauguration show or whatever, where we won't be watching the inauguration. We will be encouraging everybody to watch the show instead. Maybe we'll read over some of the document that was released from Jack Smith as pertaining to the January 6th insurrection case against Donald Trump. Maybe we'll do some other things. We'll be watching to see what executive orders are signed by Donald Trump, see who he pardons, if he pardons anybody on day one. I really hope that I don't expect him to not pardon like people like Jake Lang, but I'm really hoping, I would love to see the conservative meltdown over Jake Lang. If they specifically came out and said because Jake Lang assaulted a police officer, he's not getting a pardon, or that's what he's accused of, so he's not getting a pardon. I would love to see that happen. But one of the things I think I heard this on a conservative show. I think I heard this on Jeff's show. One of the things I did hear is that there are families of J6ers who are planning to show up at the jails that these people are sitting at and are being held in and detained in, waiting for their trials, expecting Donald Trump to pardon them on day one, so they could just take them home immediately. The idea that that's going to happen, it could, if they have everything pre-drafted and just need signatures, just need to have him like write his scribble signature with his Sharpie or whatever, that is the same one he uses to draw hurricane maps or whatever. I would love to see those people show up waiting for a jail cells and be like, well, we're not going to pardon today, maybe tomorrow, and then like have them delay it for a long time, so they're just absolutely burning through their money just waiting for their person, and then all of a sudden have them say, well, this person assaulted a cop, so we're not going to pardon him. Again, I don't expect him to not pardon Jake Lang. I'm sure he will, because he's an idiot and a traitor to this country, and that just will further cement that Donald Trump is an idiot and a traitor to this country. But I had Andrea from HouseMod did send me the documents. I just haven't opened it and read it yet. However, one of the things that I do want to point out or talk about, which is a little just briefly before we go, is just something that was very surreal that happened on that Jeff Guerrero Ringside Politics show, both yesterday and today. Because yesterday I called in to talk about insurance, and it was the same, I think, issue that I talked about the other day about how insurance companies are screwing over. Oh, I did have one other thing I wanted to point out because of insurance. So before we end the show, I do have one more video to record to that I'm going to upload, and it's going to be an apology to all of y'all, because I do have something to apologize for. We'll get to that at the very end. But I was talking about how insurance, the insurance, the greed of the insurance companies. They basically will insure you for a certain amount of years and then say, well, we're done, we've taken all our money, but and then we're going to just leave you holding the bag, so you have to now take part in this citizens insurance, which is too expensive. And how if insurance companies are going to write policies in a state, they should write all policies in a state, or not be able to deny anybody in a state, because that's how insurance pooling is supposed to work. So there's that. And then other conservatives who normally would absolutely 100% disagree with me called into the show and said, I usually don't say this, but I agree with Liberal Dan. Which makes me then have to question, is what I said really correct? Did I word what I said properly? Because if these conservative people are agreeing with me, then holy crap, did I actually say the wrong thing? Or are these people like a stopped clock and being right twice a day? I'm sure they'd probably say that I was the stop clock in their worlds and their scenarios, but that's how things go. P-Dubs, VP is going to a game after an inauguration. I mean, I did see J.D. Vance's post about that. I was wondering if he was trolling, trying to draw out the Democrats and liberals and progressives to attack him for what he said, or if he really was just going to go to the game after the inauguration. It's probably the latter, but again, I really don't care, because Vance is just there to be a placeholder. I don't expect him to do much. He'll do his president of the Senate duties. How well he does that, that's another question. But hey, Alton Gillespie, good to see you late in. I mean, we're ending soon, but thank you for stopping by. Make sure to smash that like button along the way before we end. Of course, for the Twitch people, it is a hard out because y'all can't. Twitch doesn't like it when I play the Nimbus song, my outro. That's also my intro. But so it'll be a hard out on there until I can find a YouTube safe or a Twitch safe song to use for the outro. But until then, whatever. But anyway, let me do the one more video, and then unless I see something to respond to, we'll end the show. On a previous show, I was discussing the California wildfires. And this is something that I have to apologize to y'all about, because I said something and I was wrong for what I said. What happened was, I was talking about James Woods and how there were certain things about James Woods that I disagree with him politically. I don't understand how one can equate the loss of a house to the loss of a loved one. That doesn't make any sense to me. I understand that items can have sentimental value, but it's still, I have items that I'm sentimental about, but losing those items are nothing compared to losing a loved one. So I don't understand the mindset there. But, I also made it a point on the last show to say that, hey, even though I disagree with James Woods politically, I don't wish that anybody lose their house. Like, I don't want anybody to lose their house, to lose whatever. I don't wish that on anybody. I apologize for saying that, because it was then shown to me, I then saw a tweet that was made by James Woods in response to the Israel-Hamas war, who said that he did not want a ceasefire. And in saying that he didn't want a ceasefire, he said, kill them all. So you know what? F James Woods. I don't give a I'm glad his house burnt down. He is a deplorable person. He's a terrible person. And I have no qualms in saying that I wish the other people's houses didn't burn down whatsoever. But if you're a type of person that's going to say kill them all when it comes to the people getting, bombed by Israel, yeah, screw you. I'm glad your house burned down. Suck it. You're a horrible person. Done. So, that's my apology. I hope y'all like it. P-Dubs, wow, I did not see that coming. So, this is why I need a new laptop, too. I don't expect anybody to just Venmo me $1,500 so I can get a new high-quality laptop. So I'm not expecting, I'm not even asking for that. So, I mean, I'll probably cry if somebody actually did that for me. That being said, YouTube and my streamer I don't seem to have enough processing power sometimes. I might get a little bit of a kind of a spinning wheel thing when I both stream and record. I think it uses a lot of processing power, and that's why I think when I'm recording things, you might see some delays in the thing, because again, this laptop's 4 years old, it's struggling, there's like even a big bump on the keyboard now, I don't know what that's about, so it's gonna have to be replaced at some point soon, but whatever. Michael, thank you so much. That's awesome of you. I'm not going to cry for the $50, but it makes me feel very good that you did send me a $50 super chat. That is awesome of you. That is my first, I think, $50 super chat. If I'm forgetting anybody who sent me another one previously, I apologize, but I think that is absolutely. I think that is my first $50 super chat. So you are awesome. Thank you so much for that. Let's see. Thank you, Alton, for liking the rant. I figured y'all would like the rant. I figured y'all would appreciate the fact that would be my apology. Because there's this GIF that I usually share a lot of times when people start off with something that you're like, where the hell is he going with this? And it's a football player saying, well, they had us in the first half, I'm not gonna lie. And I'll use that when people like do a nice little swerve there where they start off saying something, and like, are you really saying this? And all of a sudden, there you go. So that was my intent with that one. But again, still, I didn't realize that he had said kill them all in his tweet when I had said what I said. So I absolutely felt the need to retract my statement on Jade's Woods at that point. But yeah, I do absolutely, and somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but I do absolutely think that this was the first $50 super chat. So I appreciate you so much for that, Michael. And as I said, since you did give me a $50 super chat, I may very well continue talking now, at least until that goes away. So, but yeah. So, let's see. Wife just got home before she catches me on the phone. Thanks for the membership, P-Dub. Just kidding. Wife's great. Good night, folks. Thank you so much for joining with us today, Floyd, and for everybody else that are in there with the chat. Michael, sorry, but I love supporting good people. That might make me cry. I've already had a lot of stuff going on, but I appreciate the sentiment, and I appreciate the contribution. That's so awesome. Thank you so much. What is it that Jeff said? I missed. Jeff has to go to the hospital to get a heart monitor. Last time I spent 2 days in the cardiac ICU. I feel worse now. That's terrible. Yeah, I mean, I definitely sympathize with that, just because, again, as for anybody who missed the early part of the show, I was in the hospital with my wife on Monday, and she's dealing with several health issues. She's always dealt with some health issues, but she's been dealing with several health issues. Everything tastes like crap. Actually, technically, everything tastes salty to her, with the exception of, I think she says water tastes like spoiled milk, which is weird. And I don't like even milk that's not fresh, let alone milk. I mean, I do like fresh milk, like if it's just freshly bought from the store, I do like that. But anything that's close to the expiration date, I can't stand. Funny story from high school. I would usually go with my mom to go grocery shopping with her, and I would always make sure that we would go to and get the milk as the last thing in the cart and the first thing out of the cart when we get home. And I do the same thing today, like when I go to Costco and get my milk. Mom one time went without me, and she came home and she brought all the groceries in. I poured myself a glass of milk. I sat there drinking the milk, and I looked at her. I'm like, "You got this first, didn't you?" She's like, "How the hell did you know that?" I was like, "I can taste it, because I'm very sensitive when it comes to my milk." So, wait, did his house not? He was crying about his house burning down. Did his house not burn down? Well, if it didn't burn down, I hope it does. So anyway, but yeah, that's my milk story. But back to my wife. She has been dealing with that issue, and because everything tastes salty, everything tastes disgusting to her. Like she's a big chocoholic or whatever. I mean, I don't like the term chocoholic because it's not chocohol. It's chocolate. It's not alcohol. It's chocolate. A chocolate addict. Like I've seen her like wake up in the middle of the night, like half asleep, eating like a piece of Dove chocolate or whatever because she's hungry. I'm like, this is why you need to go to the dentist. But it's very cute. And I pick on her about it a bunch, and she knows that I do. But yeah, like nothing she eats tastes like. I think she's handled fruit roll-ups. I think she's handled. She had some apple juice earlier today that I think she could tolerate. I think she got Pedialyte to help with any of the dehydration and loss of electrolytes. That also is something that she could tolerate today to be able to help her, I guess, rehydrate or whatever. But yeah, it's been crazy just trying to help her and trying to give her things that she might like and might be able to tolerate. I'm wondering if just like unseasoned chicken and like rice might be something that she could also tolerate or whatever. But I was definitely a nervous Nelly. I still technically am a nervous Nelly because we don't know what the answers are and we don't know what's going on with it. And I'm concerned as much as I can be, and probably more so than I'm letting on, with the fact that she doesn't know what's going on, and I wish they could figure out an answer to solve this problem with her so she can A, just simply enjoy food, but B, not get sick because she can't handle eating or drinking anything without having to feel like she needs to vomit. So if it's not chocolate, it's not dessert. Cherry pie. I should start saying, is that a karaoke request? She's my cherry pie. But if she should eat cherry pie, I don't think she likes. I don't know if she likes cherry pie or not. I don't know if she's ever had. I don't know if I've ever seen her have it. Like she's not usually a pie person. Like maybe some things she'll eat, but usually I'll take that back. I did use a gluten-free crust, and I did make a peach pie, and she did enjoy the peach pie. So I guess she will eat some pies, but I guess I'm also a good baker. So she also likes my chocolate chip cookies that I make, especially my peppermint hot chocolate chip cookies, which is basically peppermint chips, marshmallow chips, chocolate chips in a sort of Toll House type recipe, using gluten-free flour that enables her to be able to eat it. And because you have the peppermint in there and the marshmallows, that makes the cookies taste like really like you don't sense any of the stuff that you get in a gluten-free cookie. Like my regular chocolate chip cookies taste really good, but they're not as good as my regular chocolate chip cookies. But these, you can't tell that they're gluten-free at all. And then another cookie that I made, it actually turned out probably would be better if I molded them into bars or whatever. It uses the cookie recipe, but I used, instead of 2 eggs, I used 1 egg, and I used fresh strawberries and white chocolate chips. That was really good too that I made, but it probably would have been better as bars because the strawberries made it too liquidy, and like the cookies just went flat, and they were very bendy or whatever. So I think if I formed them into bars and baked them in like the bar trays or whatever, it probably would have tasted better. So thank you, Janelle, for the good thoughts or whatever. P-dubs, I like dark chocolate. I also love dark chocolate as well. My wife is more of a milk chocolate person than a dark chocolate person. The place that, when I always talk about going to cider, I literally mean like alcoholic cider. Like there's a cidery that we go to, and they get into some chocolates from this place called Piety and Desire, I think it is, chocolates. And they have a various collection of chocolate, and most of it's good. Even their white chocolate, like their white chocolate bars, which a lot of people don't like white chocolate in and of itself because it's not really good chocolate, but his white chocolate is amazeballs. So it's P-dubs, I hope your wife is feeling better soon. Me too. Again, I'm a little bit of a nervous Nelly about the whole thing, but it's she's the love of my life. She's stuck with me, and I want to be stuck with her as much as possible. So, see, kimchi. Brat diet for gastrointestinal distress: banana, rice, applesauce, toast, and tea. Problem with toast is she can't have the toast unless it's gluten-free bread. So there is that. Although I might ask her if she wants me to make her some toast and see if that might help. That might be a good idea. I think we do have some gluten-free bread, and maybe I can make her some gluten-free toast. I did ask her about the banana, though, because because one of the things that she was missing, the only vitamin I think that she was, or whatever, the only supplement that she was missing from her blood work on Monday night was potassium. So I'm like, you should definitely have some bananas. And people at the hospital also said like leafy greens, but she is not a salad person, so we definitely should do that. But I definitely did think about making her the rice as well. But I will talk to her about maybe trying some toast and seeing if that is tolerable. Maybe toast, maybe a little bit of butter. Maybe, I don't know. Would butter be fine on the toast for the brat diet, or should you avoid the butter? I don't know. And she definitely wants to have things like that are going to be soothing and calm on her stomach, like rice, banana, applesauce, and not like meat, because she's pretty much been almost fasting for days, if not over a week, simply because of the fact that, again, she can't tolerate eating anything because it tastes terrible. That's the problem. Like, the problem is not that she can't swallow. The problem is she can't handle eating because it makes her want to vomit. So P-dubs. God made a man and said, I effed up. Then God made a woman. Funniest thing I've heard tonight. Thank you, P-dubs. Because this month I'm actually I'm back to doing my writing classes as well. And I needed an overheard for tomorrow's class. So I'll have to take let me actually just put that in my notes. I can put that in my notes real quick. All of a sudden, take a note. Overheard. God made a man and said, I fucked up. Then God made woman. There you go. Thank you, P-dubs. Appreciate you for giving me the overheard. Or I guess it's not really an overheard because I read it. So, John Deff, can I say something? Sure, you can say whatever you want. What is the something that you want to say? Let's see. Ask her if she can handle it. If she can serve it, maybe she'll want butter and jelly. She may have some marmalade. I have to look and see in the fridge if she has any marmalade. She might have some of that. And we do have an unopened jelly as well. I'll have to check and make sure that it's gluten-free. One might think, why would jelly not be gluten-free? But why would vanilla ice cream not be gluten-free? There's examples of vanilla ice cream that have wheat in it. Not just it's ice cream made on shared lines that may have wheat in it, so there may be cross-contamination. But no, we've looked at the ingredients of ice cream and it said wheat in vanilla ice cream. Like, this is the same reason why I look both ways when I'm crossing a one-way street, because I don't trust people. I don't trust manufacturers of food when it comes to gluten, because there's hidden gluten everywhere. Oh, John, I'm sorry. Your wife passed away in her sleep last Friday. I'm so sorry to hear that. And that is actually one of my concerns, is that I don't want things just shutting down, and I'm literally terrified of that happening. I'm absolutely terrified of that happening. So I'm very sorry for your loss. As us Jewish people would say, may her memory be a blessing. One of the things I like about this chat is that instantly everybody's sending you their condolences. Again, I'm very sorry for your loss. That's such a, I can't even imagine, and I don't want to have to imagine that for a very long time. So, but I guess it's one of the things that maybe because I talk about my personal stuff that makes other people feel like they're comfortable talking about their personal stuff as well. But I mean, that to me, the fact that y'all trust me to talk about that sort of stuff, in the chat or whatever, y'all feel comfortable doing that. I think it kind of tells me that I think I'm doing the right thing here. That y'all, if y'all are comfortable telling me that to me tells, and y'all are comfortable telling me the rest of the people, personal things. That shows that we are not just having a good podcast, not just having good shows, which is all great and well and good, but we're building a good community here as well, I think. And that I think is a very important thing too. And we're going to need a good community for us to survive the next 4 years, because we are all going to have to stand together, hold each other if we're close to each other if possible, proverbially, or hold each other from over the internet, and support each other in all the different ways that we can support each other, because at the end of the day, that's the way we make it through this. That's the best way that we make it part of this. Let's see, 57-year-olds, and she was part Jewish. Well, then I guess may her memory be a blessing was even more appropriate than than I might have thought it was. So kind of like my kids. My kids, they are from Cassie. Cassie is a lapsed Catholic, and my kids are half Jewish and half Catholic. So the joke is that they're cashews. That's the running joke. Let's see. John Deff. I saw a lot of friends here, so I thought it was a good time. Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. And like, again, I don't even think that Joe Gibson would say anything horrible in response to that. Not that he's, his main account has been banned in the channel, but I think we all know that Gibson Media has stopped in under sock accounts from time to time. I think we're all convinced that Adlohim is also Gibson Media. I think we're all convinced that other folks that have come in are also Gibson Media as well. But I don't even think he would be that deplorable. There are people who would be that deplorable, though. But I'm just glad that we have a good community here that we feel comfortable talking to each other. And yes, you have long distance hugs and whatever, as many long distance hugs as you might want from me and from everybody else. So again, very sorry to hear that. One of the things I think I like about, even though I'm not a practicing Jewish person, like I don't fast for Yom Kippur, I don't take off, I don't keep the Sabbath holy, I don't keep kosher. Hell, I eat bacon. I'm a bad Jew, I eat bacon. But one of the many things that I still like about my Jewish upbringing and Jewish culture and Judaism in and of itself is that when people have a loss, it's like may your memory be may their memory be a blessing, instead of just saying like rest in peace, because that kind of adds finality to it. Well, we look at the memories of it, say let the memories that you have live on in your head and be a blessing for you. So that it's, I think it's more soothing, it's more caring, that way, because again, one of the things that Jewish people, we're not concerned about converting people. We just want to, do the right thing. And part of Jewish law is that we don't demand that people convert. We don't think that you're going to not have a place in what we call the world to come because you don't believe. We believe that everybody has a place in the world to come if they're good people. So that's why we're not evangelical. That's why we don't demand that people convert. Well, at least most of us. I've seen some basically out there. One of them was on TikTok actually trying to convert people, but it's it's just one of the things. And there are many other things that I see a lot of. I mean, there are terrible Jewish people, Jared Kushner being one of them. But there's a lot of we've been through so much as a people as a whole that I think we're much more likely to have empathy for other people. Granted, again, not your Jared Kushners of the world, but for the vast majority. P-dubs, LOL, I'm a bad Jew. I eat bacon. Well, I mean, I eat bacon. I eat cheeseburgers. I eat bacon cheeseburgers. But I had like online discussions with rabbis. I remember one of my first discussions I ever had on America Online was simply that we were discussing like the rules of keeping kosher or whatever. And I was like, well, if chickens are technically don't have milk, then why can't you have a chicken and cheese sandwich? Why are they considered meat? And then the rabbi discussed why. And then he basically said, well, under Jewish law, like if you have something that you care about, you build a fence around it to protect it. Or in Judaism, it's called an eruv. So if you, why they consider chicken to be a meat type thing and not parv, which is neither milk nor meat, is that it's similar in consistency to meat, and they don't want people making the mistake of confusing that type of meat with another type of meat and then making the mistake of cooking a calf in its mother's milk. So therefore you treat it as if it was meat, so therefore you don't make the mistake. You kind of, these are the law that you have to follow, but you make your circle around here so there's more room, so you don't give yourself enough ability to actually accidentally cross that line. Because I mean, even though technically the rule is, you don't mix a calf in its mother's milk, so there's no way that you would mix that you would be, because dairy cows and beef cows are likely two completely different things in our country. You should even under the rules of the Torah, you should be able to eat a cheeseburger, because you're never going to find milk that comes from the same cow that birthed the cow that you're eating in your hamburger or your steak or whatever. But the point is that you want to keep it safe, so you don't want to make the mistake. And also, I think there's also technically some good dietary reasoning that you want to separate when you eat meat versus when you eat milk. Not that anybody follows it, really. I mean, except unless you're keeping kosher. I don't know if many people who are like, oh, well, you can't have milk after eating meat for 5 hours or something like that, which is one of the rules in Judaism. But, even people who keep kosher might not necessarily follow that. There are people who keep kosher who do, but Chucker John, I'm a bad agnostic. Hilarious. See, this is why I like progressive. This is why I like talking to different people about their cultures. You learn new things. I've definitely shocked some people when what Michael? I'm an individualist. I do eat food. That's funny. I know other people, I guess, who maybe didn't realize that I was Jewish, because again, I wasn't very vocal about it at the time on Facebook. This is before Donald Trump came into the picture. I was very vocal on Facebook about the fact that I'm Jewish because of Donald Trump being an anti-Semite. However, I surprised people with I guess the breadth of knowledge that I have. I'm like, well, I did go to Hebrew day school from first grade to 8th grade, and then I took college level courses during high school at Baltimore Hebrew University for a couple of years, and I earned college credits in high school, learning other issues, both about speaking Hebrew and about Jewish law issues, or what we refer to as halacha, and other issues. One of the most important classes that I took there was a class on how to determine and notice and spot anti-Semitism when you see it. Which is one of the reasons I had somebody try and explain to me that something was not anti-Semitic, or Trump was not anti-Semitic. I'm like, really? You the Christian old man, you're going to try and tell the Jewish person who's literally taking classes on how to determine what and spot anti-Semitism, even at the most subtle levels, that something isn't anti-Semitism? Yeah, go F yourself. So, wait, Jeff, where was that from? Frogs' legs, chicken gizzards, etc. Deer camp food. I missed that. Michael Andrews. I had alligator one time. I've also eaten alligator. I think a couple times, actually. Dark meat's terrible. They used to have fried alligator bites when I worked at Pat O'Brien's down in the French Quarter, and the first thing that they had was dark meat, and dark meat is tough like shoe leather. But then they changed the recipe to white meat. I'm like, this is so much better. So if you're going to try fried alligator, make sure that they're using the white meat from the alligator and not the dark meat from the alligator, because it will make a hell of a difference. To be progressively independent, my ex fed me deer. I was upset. My sister gave me a cow tongue burrito, and I was pissed. You don't like was it tinga? You don't like tinga tacos? I've never been able to get myself to eat tinga, to be able to eat a or is it tinga or is it lengua? I think it's lengua. Lengua is the word I'm looking for. I've never been able to eat a lengua taco. Never have wanted to try tongue. I have friends that do. I just couldn't do it. I have eaten deer. I do like venison. Venison's fine. But yeah, I've never desired to eat tongue or Rocky Mountain oysters or anything else like that. Let's see. I tried octopus I wasn't a big fan of. I think I did try that once too. I didn't like it. I've tried oysters once, like fried oysters. I don't like fried oysters. The only type of oyster that I can tolerate is the char grilled oysters that they have in certain restaurants down here. That's really only because of the fact that they it's cooked, like the charring I think gets rid of a lot of the funk that an oyster has, and it also has like butter and garlic and Parmesan and a whole bunch of other seasoning like in the sauce that they cook in. And in reality, I would just rather dip the bread in the sauce and just let somebody else eat the oyster. So Rocky Mountain oysters taste like fried liver. I would never know because I'm not going to eat one. I don't eat fried chicken livers either. I'm very weird when it comes to liver. You'll hear comments about from Jewish people be like, what am I, chopped liver? So you'll hear that happen or whatever. You'll hear. I've said that before many a times, but I won't eat, like, if you cook liver and onions in a pan, nope, not gonna eat it. You cook fried chicken livers, nope, not gonna eat it. But if you like if you make some pate, or if you make some, like, like if you serve like Jewish, like there's this, like, I forget what the brand was. It's been such a long time, but like during Passover, you would have like this like red container that would have chopped liver in it, and you could put it on like the matzah or whatever. And I'll eat that, because I think at the point when it becomes all ground up, my brain doesn't trigger the same thing, like seeing the liver in the pan, or just saying, oh, this is fried chicken liver. No, I can't do it. I absolutely can't do it. I just don't understand the first person, and I know I'm not the first person to say this, but I had this thought independently, I think, of everybody else who has said it. Like, I've never heard anybody else, the first time I said it, I never heard anybody else say it before, and then I heard other people say it afterwards. So many people, I think, have this thought independently, which is, who is the first person on the planet who looked down at this rock on the beach and say, well, I'm hungry, let me crack open this rock, try and crack open this rock and see what's in it. And then they're like, oh, there's a big chunk of snot in this rock. I'm going to eat it raw. I mean, maybe they saw animals doing it, and maybe they were like, oh, well, if the animal's eating it, maybe I can eat it too. I don't know. But I just can't, I don't know who in there, which would just look at the rock, open it up, see the snot, and be like, that looks good. Slurp. And there are people who love oysters and love it. But it is what it is. I just can't bring myself to eat a raw oyster. So probably someone that was starving. Yeah, you're probably right. And if I was starving and then my only option was to slurp down a bunch of oysters, I'd probably slurp down a bunch of oysters, and then I'd have the after results of eating a bunch of oysters. Look out, women, coming through. No, obviously I wouldn't do anything without consent. So, see, I miss Tex-Mex after moving to Michigan from Texas. We're in Michigan. One place I do want to go in Michigan, because this is probably the only place that I think I would ever be able to find good lamb shawarma, would be Dearborn. Because I've never been able to find lamb shawarma here in the United States, and I can't stand it. That's another meat that I love. I love lamb. Like, if we go to Fogo, like Fogo de Chao, there was a while where I wouldn't go to Fogo because I was pissed off at them of abusing the PPP program. But it's one of those things of, yeah, I don't like that Fogo made those decisions during the pandemic, but Fogo is one of the places that my wife can tolerate eating because it's celiac safe, and as such, we'll go to Fogo because my wife's health is more important than my dietary stuff, and her enjoyment to be able to do that is, more important, whatever. Jolie, I'm picky when it comes to meat. I only like chicken, hamburger, and God's most important food, bacon. I will agree with you that bacon is God's most important food. I've never really found myself, I've eaten scallops, but I'm not really huge on them. They seem too tough for me. Maybe I've always had them cooked wrong. I don't know. But scallops just seem too tough for me. Like, I prefer like crabs and shrimp and crawfish, stuff like that. So, let's see. What else have I missed chat-wise as I was talking? Snails. They leave a smear. No to snails. Yeah, I've not been able to eat escargot either. Even when I've gone to Disney World, and like they'll have the food around the world during the Food and Wine Festival, and France will always have escargot. I can't bring myself to eat it. Again, I would just rather eat, rather just have the butter and the bread, and just someone else can have the snail. I don't want the snail. Yeah, Dean Baker, lengua tacos are very popular in Texas, and I love them. Yeah, I have a friend, we would go to Tacos and Beer on St. Charles here in New Orleans, and my friend would love getting lengua. She'd get a lengua taco, but I can't handle it. Can't even handle the thought. So, but yeah, I won't eat snails, won't eat oysters. Of course, there's the joke, what was it, from Trading Places, or I think it was Trading Places, which was a snail walks into a restaurant, or no, car dealership. Snails walks into a car dealership and says, I would like this car, the biggest car you have, and I want you to paint a giant S on all of the doors, and on the top, I want a giant S right on top of that too. So whenever people see me driving by, they can go, look at that S-car go. Ba-dum-bum. So I still need to see why Jeff Curry brought up frog legs, chicken gizzards, deer camp food. I ate frog. That's another thing. That one of the places that my son is newly obsessed with crawfish. Like what during last crawfish season, he was harassing us weekly to go to eat. And like eating at that place is like $100 for all of us to go or more. I'm like, we can't afford to go here all the time, Henry. We can't afford to go here. But one of the things they'll serve on one of their all-you-can-eat nights, it'll be like shrimp and frog's legs. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I don't need to eat frog's legs. Let's see, P-dubs. Do you know that turtle has several different tastes in various meat parts? Now, I have had turtle soup. I haven't eaten turtle in any other way, but I have eaten turtle soup. Barbecue soft shell turtle. Wow. That sounds crazy. Let's see. Let's keep scrolling back up a smidge. I love kosher chicken and cheesecake. I mean, kosher meat is delicious. Kosher meat is like, because the way they make it kosher is they have to slaughter the animal properly, but they'll also like pat the meat down with salt to kind of suck out all the blood, to make sure that it's not bloody. And as such, a kosher beef will tend to have a saltier taste. And I like it. I like the saltier taste to it. Of course, nowadays, if I cook steak, I put salt. I cover it in salt, not to draw the beef out, but just because that's how you're supposed to cook steak. So, anyway. Oh, look. I promised that I would continue chatting until the super chat went away. We had a nice, good, long conversation. Wait, Michael Maynard's cod with tons of tartar sauce is the only fish I like. Every time anybody mentions cod or I see cod, I think about the show Ghosts on CBS, where the Viking guy is obsessed with cod. He loves cod. And so I'll see cod and be like, oh, look, it's cod. I do love myself some fish and chips. Like if you go to, there's a place called Raglan Road in Disney Springs that we'll go to. There used to be a good fish and chips place here, but it got turned into an AT&T store. Whatevs. But yeah, I love fish and chips, and I love a good amount of tartar sauce. And I'm not sure if they always use cod or not in the fish and chips, but that's freaking delicious. Let's see. Truth Jen, I turned Boston boy into sausage gravy. Freaking Boston Yankees. Sausage gravy. I mean, sausage gravy is good enough. I like a good white gravy with like chicken fried steak or country fried steaks or whatever. See, John Deff. I didn't think I would like sushi, but I do. Yeah, for a while I didn't eat sushi, and then I started like with the simple rolls, whatever. Now I love sushi. Sushi is one of the things even when I'm not super hungry because of the Zepbound that I'm taking, I'll still eat a bunch of sushi. I mean, if I can't eat that much sushi anymore because I get full quicker because of the Zepbound, but it's one of the things I still crave is some sushi. So AT&T has lousy fish and chips. Yes, absolutely, John. AT&T is not a very good place to go if you want fish and chips. So it's a good place for fiber internet because that's what I have, and that's what I've been streaming on the show for at least a good year or two, ever since I dumped Cox Communications. So anyway, since Michael's very generous super chat has run its course, I will now go ahead and end the program again. Normal show times are Monday and Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central, but I will be doing a non-inauguration, maybe a non-guration. I'll have to think of a clever way to word it, where we'll be live right before and during the inauguration, so we don't have to watch it. We can watch something else, i.e. this show. And I'm more than welcome y'all to join us because I am off that day, so I can actually be on that day. During the middle of the day, and we'll be on for at least a little bit, but we'll keep an eye out for any of his initial executive orders that he might sign. We'll keep our eye out for anything else, and then we'll probably take a break and then to come back for the regular 8 p.m. show Central as well. Pre-impeachment farce, yes. Yes, Trucker John, AT&T is a good place to get your fiber. This is why I love Trucker John, because our sense of humor is right there. So, Absolutely. Catch you on replay. Thanks, Dan and Danimals. Yes, thank you very much, Alton, as well, for joining. Appreciate y'all. Again, until Monday, unless anything huge happens between now and Monday, I'll be back Monday, both at 8 p.m. and earlier in the day for the inauguration show. Again, to anybody watching on Twitch, we have a hard out without any music, but if you're watching on YouTube, we will play the Nimbus song until then. But thank you very much. Again, remember, keep your eyes out for the videos that should be. I will be up after the show, working on uploading those videos. They'll probably be live tomorrow, but please keep an eye out for those. Share, like them, comment on them, etc. Keep the algorithms going up because Al Gore needs more rhythm. Maybe that should be a t-shirt. Al Gore needs more rhythm. Help the algorithms. Al Gore needs more rhythm. Maybe like a dancing Al Gore or something, like Al Gore and like maybe a 70s thing or whatever. I don't know. Just an idea. But anyway, till the next time I see y'all, thank y'all very much. Thank you, everybody. Again, let's just do kind of a recap of the fan funding from the course of the show. You had P-Dubs gifting 10 memberships. Marie gave 5. Jolie gave 10. Progressively Independent became a Danimal. Erin has been a Danimal for 12 months, her 1-year Daniversary. Big Hook gave 20 Canadian. And, of course, Michael McAndrews gave 50 as well. So, again, shouts out to all of y'all. Appreciate it. And until next time, I hope you have a very good rest of your night, good day tomorrow, good rest of your weekend. And again, unless anything else happens crazy before then, we will see you Monday, and have a good night. Peace.